Chapter 767. The next step should be to find the southern gate of heaven and go to the ruins of immortality through the bridge of heaven. Zhang Tian's gaze was as sharp as a blade, his expression was firm as he leisurely said calmly. But before that, I must search the earth and be fully prepared to reach the mid-stage of foundation establishment and even form the golden core. When I reach the ruins of immortality, I won't be in a passive position and be at the mercy of others. He didn't know what kind of order and civilization there was in the ruins of immortality. But at any time the strong had ways to exploit and oppress the weak. It was just that the methods were different. Bang! The next moment, Zhang Tian took out the sky-swallowing demonic gourd from his waist. Many crimson flame fortune pills, which had been refined earlier and were as translucent as red agates, flew into Zhang Tian's mouth. Boom! Zhang Tian's body shook. The surging medicinal power in his qi churned wildly. His qi kept expanding under the bombardment of the medicinal power, and it kept trembling as if it was about to explode. The terrifying medicinal power expanded his energy reserve and meridians to 10 times their original size. The medicinal power is indeed powerful and abundant. It's more than enough to reach the 9th level of qi refinement. Zhang Tian wasn't afraid at all. Instead, a trace of ecstasy appeared on his face. He made a series of hand seals and the 7th metal divine body art was activated. Suddenly, the medicinal power was refined into a vast amount of 7th metal true essence. Like a surging river, it poured into his meridians, organs and bones, cleansing his entire body. In the spring and summer of 2011, Sidoni experienced the most severe rainstorm in history. There were frequent tropical storms. The entire Sidoni was a vast ocean. The Cass River was surging and the riverbed was submerged. The entire Sidoni was busy. The army and the people were involved in the war against the flood. Sidoni Jiuxiao Peak Tianqing School's training hall. In a clean and elegant office. The data on the LCD screens flowed like a waterfall. Many computer hackers and intelligence personnel were busy working. Outside, the rain was pouring and lightning flashed. As usual, Sasaki Kaisha, Meryl and dozens of intelligence officers analyzed the intelligence stolen and collected from the dark web in the major countries. Suddenly, an outer court disciple hurriedly rushed in and reported, "Hall Master, someone requests to see you." "Who?" Sasaki Haisha asked. "Sect leader of Wuxia's ancient Wudong Tang Linglong." The outer sect disciple's face was ghastly pale as he spoke in a trembling voice. They knew that Tang Linglong was the eldest disciple of the sect leader, so they treated her with respect. However, as soon as they said that they wanted to go in and report, Tang Linglong flew into a rage and destroyed a statue of a mythical beast at the door. "Oh, let her in." Sasaki Haisha was still very respectful to this big sister and quickly said, "There's no need to invite me in, I'm coming in." A beautiful figure with a monstrous baleful aura walked in with large strides under the escort of a group of Wudong experts. The red tassel of Tang Linglong's sword on her back was dripping with rain. The rain-soaked cyan robe clung tightly to her curvaceous body, exuding a strange beauty that was a mixture of sexiness, charm and purity. Her long and curly eyelashes were stained with dew-like raindrops. Her pretty face was washed by the rain and her eyebrows looked very clean. Behind her were 8 elders of Wudong. Most of them were half a step away from the immortal state and some were even in the immortal state. No one knew what method Tang Linglong used to enhance their cultivation. "I want to see Zhao Xueqing," Tang Linglong said proudly. "You can't call the mistress by her name. Even if you are the eldest disciple, you can't forget the seniority." Sasaki Kaisha's face changed and said in a cold voice, "Let her out." Tang Linglong's beautiful eyes were as sharp as a knife, giving tit for tat. Boom! A surge of energy came out of her body and pushed out horizontally. The entire office shook and the tables and chairs collapsed. "How dare you?" Sasaki Kaisha was furious and scolded. "The mistress is in seclusion and no one is allowed to disturb her. Do you want to overturn the sect? Let her out. Otherwise I will kill you," Tang Linglong shouted angrily. Plang! The sword on her back moved without any wind. It jumped up quickly and slashed toward Sasaki Kaisha like a bolt of lightning. "Ouch!" Sasaki Kaisha exclaimed. His body flashed back like lightning and slid more than 10 meters away in an instant. Boom! Tang Linglong's sword pierced a big hole in the wall. With a flash of cold light, The treasured sword flew back into the scabbard on its back after a dazzling spin. What a powerful strike. This crazy girl has reached the immortal state. Sasaki Kaisha's eyes were full of fear. Her face was pale and cold sweat broke out on her forehead. She had been enlightened by Zhou Xian and his wife and had been cultivating diligently for the past few days. She had already reached half an immortal state and was as powerful as the one origin of the Sword God Palace in Japan. However, Tang Linglong had almost pierced through her. She didn't know that the foundation of the ancient Wudong sect was not bad. After Zhang Tian opened the treasury of the ancient Wudong sect, many sword arts classics and spirit herbs were opened to Tang Linglong. She had also been enlightened by Zhang Tian before, and she was also someone with great talent and comprehension ability. If she was able to comprehend things by analogy, wouldn't her cultivation level increase explosively? Now that she had reached the immortal state, she could compete with the sect masters of the hidden sections. However, Sasaki Kaisha was now the president of the Sakura Society. She was also a stubborn person. Seeing Tang Linglong's arrogance, she couldn't stand it. She raised her right hand and opened her palm. Suddenly, a katana on the table flew out of its scabbard and into his hand. Sasaki Kaisha held the handle of the tachi with both hands and pointed the sharp tip at Tang Linglong, shouting angrily. You are the Hall Master of the Wudong sect of Tianqing School, but I am the Hall Master of the Punishment Hall. How dare you attack me? Do you know the rules of the sect? You called the mistress by her name. Do you know who your master is? The sect had instructed you to guard Wuxia. You didn't listen to the order and acted rashly. Do you have any respect for the dignity of the sect? You will be punished for several crimes. I order you to kneel down and admit your mistake. Otherwise, I will punish you. Sasaki Kaisha, who do you think you are? You want me to kneel down? I am the first disciple of my master. Tang Linglong raised her eyebrows and shouted. I don't want to talk nonsense with you. I got the news that my master was trapped by an array in the northern islands of Russia, which alarmed the entire dark world. Tang Linglong said angrily, What are you doing now? Aren't you going to rescue my master? The more she said, the angrier she got. Tears were in the corner of her eyes. Without my master, would you have the status you have now? Would you have such a powerful cultivation? You have nothing. Whether you can even survive is still a question. Isn't this the news that Elder Dongsun gave to my master? Isn't it your Wudong sect's fault? Sasaki Kaisha said mockingly. Plop. Elder Dongsun was so scared that he knelt down and exclaimed. Senior Sasaki, please investigate. I definitely didn't know that there was a time array in the sword catacomb. I was just telling the truth. I had no intention of framing Master Kong. Sasaki Kaisha didn't bother to look at him and sneered. Tang Linglong, aren't you most concerned about your master? Aren't you very filial? But now your Wudong sect has caused my master to be missing. Last time, Qin Anping gathered Situ Yuanhao and many other immortal realm cultivators to set up a trap to harm my master. If my master's cultivation wasn't strong enough, he would have been killed by you. Last time you caused an international dispute. At that time the Condor team put pressure on my master to punish you by military law. In order to save you and to take the blame for you, my master had to go to Japan to be punished. If my cultivation wasn't strong enough, how many lives do you think I would have had to be killed by the 28-man army in Japan? Tell me, how much trouble have you caused for my master? You put my master in danger time and time again. If my master's cultivation wasn't strong enough, he might have died a few hundred times. It's rare to see a disciple like you who would take advantage of her master. If I were you, I would kill myself to atone for my sins. You brainless idiot with low cultivation. You want to be my master's woman? Bah, your dreams are much better than your looks. Dream on. With every sentence that Sasaki Kaisha said, Tang Linglong's pretty face turned paler and paler. By the time she finished speaking, Tang Linglong's face was already as pale as a sheet of paper. Her delicate body was trembling uncontrollably. At this time Tang Linglong was blaming herself and anxious. Her face was full of bitterness, sadness and despair. Tears flowed down her face, but she couldn't cry a single word. Puff. When Sasaki Kaisha spat out the last sentence, Tang Linglong's body suddenly trembled. She screamed and a mouthful of blood shot out from her mouth. Are you okay? I just want to persuade you to calm down and don't do anything stupid. Seeing the scarlet blood on the ground, Sasaki Kaisha couldn't bear it. Her face softened and she wanted to help Tang Linglong. In fact, from Tang Linglong's point of view, she was obsessed with Jiang Tian all her life and couldn't get him. It was also very tragic. But her arrogant look really annoyed Sasaki Kaisha and she couldn't help but want to provoke her. "Don't come over." Tang Linglong wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth, pointed her long sword at Sasaki Kaisha and shouted angrily. "I want to talk to you more, don't I?" Sasaki Kaisha stopped and muttered in a low voice. "I owe master. Of course I know. I will pay for it with my life." Tang Linglong held the table to prevent herself from falling. She closed her eyes and said slowly, "I violated the rules of the sect. I also know that. After I saved master, I naturally came to the punishment hall to receive my punishment. But I love master. Whether master accepts it or not, it is my right. That sentence, you shouldn't have said it." Suddenly Tang Linglong opened her eyes. Her hair was flying and her eyes were as sharp as a knife. Her true essence surged all over her body, and the rain immediately evaporated like smoke. "So you can go and die." As soon as she finished speaking, with a swish, Tang Linglong's sharp sword swept towards Sasaki Kaisha. "Sister Long, why are you looking for the mistress?" Suddenly a gentle voice sounded. Swish. In the sharp sound, two crystal-clear jade-like breaths broke through the air and firmly entangled the two swords in Tachi. The next moment, the two swords spiraled back into the sheath uncontrollably. The two women looked back and saw Huang Linger coming from outside the door. Although her bearing was delicate and timid, like a weak willow in the wind and a delicate flower shining on the water, her eyes were shining and firm. There was a smile on her mouth and she had a different kind of charm. Chapter 768. Greetings, Senior Ling. Sasaki Haisha respectfully clasped his fists and bowed to salute. The relationship between Huang Linger and Jiang Tian was a secret in Tianqing school. It was said that Huang Linger and Master Kong had an ill-fated relationship, but they were not close. Zhou Xian was also very concerned about Huang Linger. She asked about her well-being in daily life and taught her cultivation. They were like sisters. There was a time when Qin Yang and the others thought they were smart enough to call Huang Linger little mistress to please her. But Huang Linger was so anxious that she cried and asked them not to call her that in the future. She said that it was good enough that she could stay in Tianqing school and accompany Jiang Tian. That's her. She wants master to love her. She can share master's love like Zhou Xian. As soon as she saw her, Tang Linglong immediately felt a surge of bitterness and grievance in her heart. Her eyes were red, her hands were trembling, and her heart was filled with crazy hatred. Why can't I? How is she better than me? Suddenly she sorrowfully thought that it was very likely that her master was already dead, so what was the point of being jealous? She felt a sharp pain in her heart as if thousands of steel knives were twisting in her soft heart. She covered her chest and said, "Huang Linger, I want everyone to rescue master together. He's in the northern islands. He once asked the Moonwolf clan to tell us that master will be fine. He asked us to guard Sidoni." Huang Linger said gently. "But that's the one-day prison array that once killed a holy venerable." Tang Linglong shouted. "Even a human immortal or earth immortal will turn into bones and dust after 30 days in there." Huang Linger was not good with words. After a moment of silence she said with a smile, "You have to believe in master's strength. No array in this world can trap master." "But he hasn't come out yet." Tang Linglong said angrily, "I've talked to Yi Zhantian before. That formation is listed as one of the top 10 most dangerous formations in the world. There's no benefit in staying in there, right? If master could break it, why didn't he come out? What was he doing in there?" "I'm playing." "Why is it like this?" "I don't know." Huang Linger was stunned for a moment, then she smiled gently and said, "But I think master must have his reasons for doing so. As women, all we have to do is listen to his orders. Don't act on your own initiative and disrupt his rhythm." "Tang Linglong, all the information you've mentioned has been closely monitored and analyzed by thousands of intelligence analysts and special agents in Tianqing School and Sidoni's intelligence department. They know everything." At that moment, Observer Merrill interrupted. "But this time we think that Master Kong will be fine. The real danger is Sidoni. According to our analysis, There's a possibility that the whole world will go after Sidoni. Of course, except for Wuxia. So, guarding Sidoni is the key to winning this war. You know, the foundation of Tianqing School is here. I understand what you're saying, but I think, Tang Linglong interrupted. The best defense is offense. Since the grassland werewolves and vampires have shown their hostility, then we should strike first. Kill them. Huang Linger's combat strength was very strong, but she was a bit muddle-headed in the face of such a complicated situation. She didn't know whether it made sense or not, so she was speechless for a moment. At that moment, Sasaki Kaisha said, "How about this? I'll take you to Master's wife. She's fighting the flood." "Didn't you say she was in seclusion?" Tang Linglong was surprised, then she said angrily, "How dare you lie to me? Fighting the flood is as important as training in seclusion. Sidoni is the foundation of Taiching sect. Without this land they provided, there would be no Taiching sect dojo." Huang Linger said seriously. "Besides, the Kuelian system array is about to be completed. It will be the largest Dharma artifact in history. It's comparable to a nuclear weapon, and this huge project involves 30,000 workers and scientists from Sidoni." Sasaki Ocean Sand interjected. "Yeah, 30,000 people. Do you think it's possible to create such a great weapon with only a few hundred people in our sect? This is why our master built Sidoni, and why he cares about these ordinary people. They can be as small as ants but as magnificent as gods." Tang Linglong couldn't be bothered. She just urged, "Stop talking nonsense and take me to Zhao Xueqing." Sasaki Kaisha shrugged. He could only call for a military helicopter and took Tang Linglong to the Cass River. For Zhang San and Li Si of the Three Heroes Manor, this was an unforgettable day. It was also the biggest flood they had ever seen. On the Cass River, turbid waves surged. The angry flood was like a yellow dragon, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, invading the plains on both sides. However, the meteorological department did not forecast this heavy rain and flood at all. Fortunately, the Heavenly Army soldiers reacted quickly and sent countless helicopters to help the residents evacuate. The casualties were kept in single digits. The main purpose of fighting the flood was to protect the crops and the industries in the plains. On the south side of the Cass River was a boundless plain. 30 kilometers south was the capital, San Juan. In this area, 80% of the country's industries were concentrated. New Silicon Valley, Medicine King Industrial Park, Heavenly Army Arsenal, and other large modern industrial groups were all in this area. Sidoni had 600,000 residents. Including the new immigrants, there were less than 1 million people. It was a vast land but sparsely populated. In the face of such a terrifying flood, almost everyone was a soldier and went to war. On the dams on both sides of the Cass River, people were like ants. Many tents were set up high on the dams. Rocks, boards, and woven bags filled with sand were piled up like mountains. People either used machines or carried people on their shoulders to transport the sand over to plug the holes. In the 116th section of the Three Heroes Manor, the deputy commander, Zhang San, had been working continuously for 10 days. Every day he only slept for 3 hours. His hands were soaked until they turned white. Many layers of skin were peeled off by the sandbags and some even bled. His dirty hair was very long and he was as skinny as a stick. However, no matter how much rain poured down, the word absolute beginning on his back was always clear. He was very tired and the heavy work made him pant. He felt like his heart was about to jump out of his chest. However, he never thought of stopping. Sidoni had never been as prosperous as it was now. The achievements that he had worked so hard to build could not be destroyed by the flood. "Wang Wu, I thought you weren't coming? Why are you here now?" Suddenly Zhang San saw Wang Wu walk over. Wang Wu was a lazy drunkard in the Three Heroes Manor. No one remembered his original name. He had been recruited by President Kuba's government army and was a low-level officer for a few years. However, in the years of war between the warlords he had never killed a single person. Every time there was a war he would shoot randomly into the sky. When it was time to eat he would throw the gun away and go eat. In fact, this was the typical practice of many soldiers during the war between the warlords in Sidoni. The war was very amateur. It was like a carnival. Sometimes they would fight for a few days and nights. Many bullets would be used but no one would die. They would eat on time. When they ate they would throw the gun in the trench or inside the bunker. The enemy would not come over to pick it up. With the establishment of the new government, the soldiers of President Kuba's government army were all sent home. Wang Wu was given a rubber plantation in the Three Heroes Manor, and he also received a sum of living expenses. Wang Wu was old and it was hard to change his laziness. When he returned home he did not do anything but spend the severance pay. Every few days he would go to the nearby construction site to do odd jobs. Every time he finished his odd jobs and earned some pocket money, he would go to the small bar near the manor to buy alcohol. He would get drunk and lie in bed for a few days. Anyway, there were a lot of tropical fruits in the manor so he would not starve to death. The villagers in the Three Heroes Manor had all gone through vocational training. Almost all of them had proper jobs and earned a lot of money. They were given new houses and moved to the nearby new towns. However, Wang Wu still lived in the old house in the Three Heroes Manor. He was already in his 40s and was not married. He had enough to eat and his family was not hungry. However, he was proud of himself and called himself the owner of the manor. Sidoni's industry developed quickly, and a large number of farmers entered the city. The land was transferred and merged quickly, forming many large-scale farm owners. The land in the manor was barren and no one was managing it. It was almost abandoned. Many people sold the land to him at a low price and he got a good deal. However, he was very fashionable and followed the trend. He checked the Chinese dictionary and gave himself a Chinese name. The bar owner has come to work. I have no alcohol to drink so I can only come. Wang Wu was wearing a shabby khaki military uniform. He said resentfully, I heard that there is money to work? Yes. Zhou Xian said with a smile. Every bag of sand you carry is 5 yuan suo coins. It's enough for you to buy a bottle of erguo too. Under the leadership of Jiang Bangxia, Qin Zhenming and a group of financial experts, the Sidoni Central Bank was established and issued a sovereign currency, Sidoni dollars or suo coins for short. Suo coins were based on the exchange rate of the US dollar and had a strong purchasing power. It was a hard currency in the world and many foreign trade companies were willing to use suo coins for settlement. How much alcohol can I buy with that? 1 day of work is enough for me to drink for 3 days and 3 nights. Wang Wu was very excited. Like a fly rubbing its hands, he picked up a bag of sand and started working. At this time the alarm sounded. The broadcast and intercom public channel shouted in English. Wild Boar Ridge Dam number 117 has breached. 10 meters, nearby construction workers for emergency rescue. Once in English, once in Chinese, but this time the breach was 20 meters. Chapter 769. Wild Boar Ridge Embankment number 117 was less than 10 kilometers away from number 116. Zhang San and Li Si were duty-bound. Zhu Jiangchao from the Ministry of Health was the temporary commander of the construction site. He immediately shouted, Quick, quick! 20 people over. 3 trucks. Zhang San and Li Si got into the car. Wang Wu also climbed in. Zhang San asked, You're going too? Of course. If the flood erupts, the tavern will be gone. How will I drink in the future? Wang Wu grinned and took a sip of erguo too. He was very satisfied. 3 trucks broke through the heavy rain and sped towards embankment number 117. When they arrived, everyone was shocked. Everyone was alarmed. They saw that the dam had already been breached by the torrential flood, leaving behind a 40-meter wide hole. The surging river water was like an army rushing down from the gap. Below was a vast swamp. 10 kilometers away was the office building of Unju Real Estate Company and a new town. Sandbags were thrown in and disappeared in the blink of an eye. What should we do? Everyone got out of the car and was dumbfounded. Wang Wu suddenly pulled the driver out and sat in. He started the truck and rushed towards the gap. What are you doing, Wang Wu? Zhang San shouted as he chased after the truck. Sandbags are useless. Maybe the truck will be useful. In the name of absolute beginning, defeat the flood. Wang Wu grinned. After all, Wang Wu was trained in the Kuba government army. His driving skills were good. As he shouted, the truck filled with sand and gravel increased its speed. Finally, it jumped and fell into the gap. Boom. The water flow stopped, but it did not wash the truck out. Everyone was stunned at that moment. No one expected the lazy drunkard Wang Wu to do something like that. My absolute beginning. Wang Wu must have drunk too much. This is completely suicidal. A black man shook his head in shock. He didn't drink too much. Even if he drank too much, it's not because he drank too much. Zhou Xian shook his head gently. Tears blurred his eyes. Hurry up and get to work, Li Si shouted. His blood-stained hands were holding a gunny sack. His bare feet stepped on the sharp stones as he rushed towards the embankment. His feet were pierced and ground by the sharp stones, causing blood to flow out. However, he did not seem to feel anything and continued to charge forward. Gradually, the crowd became restless, scrambling to hold the sandbags and throw them inside. Immediately after, on the other side, another truck driver drove his car into the water from the other end as if he was facing death. Under everyone's speedy work, the gap was gradually blocked and the water flow became smaller and smaller. But at this moment, a huge wave of 4 to 5 meters high suddenly came crashing down. Rumble. The two trucks carrying dozens of material packages all collapsed and the torrent poured down. Above the Cass River, several Wuxia Xiaolong military helicopters were flying in a column. In the leading helicopter, President Qinyang of Sidoni was reporting to Zhou Xian. Mistress, 3 days ago the Blood Clan, the Grassland Wolf Clan and the Western Dark Clan had already launched an attack on Wuxia's hidden sect. Dianzong was exterminated and many of their magical treasures were plundered. In Europe, the Palace of the Gods was destroyed by the vampires. Several stations were set on fire and Hera was seriously injured. 2 main gods were killed. Jiang Bangxia, the CFO of the Medicine King Group, and 300 employees in the European Union and Russia were detained by the European Union and Russian authorities on suspicion of bribery, selling counterfeit products, and stealing commercial and military secrets. The European Union and Russian health organizations claimed that the products of the Medicine King Group contained a new type of toxin that caused hundreds of medical accidents. They demanded $100 billion from the Medicine King Group and broadcasted Jiang Bangxia's trial worldwide. They also requested Sidoni to cooperate with the extradition of Zhang Wanqing and Ms. Yi Ziwei. Qinyang stared at the flood below with a solemn expression. One gap after another appeared, and his face became extremely ugly as he reported to Zhou Xian. Now all the soldiers of the Sky Army are involved in the flood relief. Even many transport planes and helicopters have been requisitioned. Master Kong is not here. We don't know if he's dead or alive. The other party chose to attack it this time. It's obvious that they want to attack us from both sides. Let's eliminate the Taiqing sect. In my opinion, the culprit is still Nie Mingyuan and the Gathering of Darkness. We must make up our minds early to execute the decapitation operation and eliminate Nie Mingyuan and the Gathering of Darkness. Then everything will be solved easily. Zhao Xueqing's face was calm. She shook her head gently and said, since the European Union and Russia have intervened, I believe they will take military action later. I'm more worried about the safety of Sidoni now. If it's just the Gathering of Darkness and Nie Mingyuan, they won't dare to detain Jiang Bangxia even if they have 10 times the courage. The situation facing the Taiqing sect and Sidoni now may be more difficult than we thought. There may be a situation where the whole world will go on a punitive expedition against Sidoni. Then we should kill Nie Mingyuan and the Gathering of Darkness now and rescue Jiang Bangxia. As the saying goes, kill 1 to warn 100 to deter the European Union and Russia. Qinyang's eyes were sharp and ruthless. To resist foreign aggression, we must first stabilize the internal situation. We need to solve the flood, save the people from hanging upside down, and preserve the strength of the military as soon as possible. Zhao Xueqing's eyes were still calm. Why do you think they want to detain Jiang Bangxia? Nie Mingyuan is not a kind person. He doesn't care about the law, trial and procedural justice. He just wants to lengthen our battle line, lure the enemy in and annihilate them in batches. This crisis is different from the last one in the Northern Gulf. Daoist Zhang Qianlei and your master are not here. We are short of 2 mortal immortals. The army is held back by the flood. The only ones who can save Jiang Bangxia are Mi Ling, a Huqingtian, and a few other immortal state warriors. Once we leave, Sidoni will be an ordinary country. How can it withstand the bombardment of the European Union's coalition forces? It will be destroyed in an instant. Alas, sometimes I really feel that these people are a burden. Qinyang frowned and heaved a deep sigh. Qinyang, if you say so, you are not qualified to be a president. Zhao Xueqing's face was unprecedentedly solemn. She said seriously, even though your master is an earth immortal, he has never underestimated the power of human beings. He once said that even among the thousands of races in the universe, the human race is still the most powerful race and has never been defeated after thousands of battles. Maybe the power of one person is very weak, but when 1 million people unite and burst out their power, together with modern weapons, they can defeat more than 100 mortal immortals and earth immortals. Mistress, I know I was wrong. Qin Yang hurriedly lowered his head and said, what should we do now? Solve the flood problem as soon as possible. Zhao Xueqing said. Qin Yang frowned. This flood was very difficult to deal with. It was the heaviest rain in Sidoni's history. All 50,000 Sky Army soldiers were involved in the flood relief, and there were still new dikes bursting out from time to time. They reported that there were 10 dikes more than 40 meters long, so we only need to block 10 of them. Zhao Xueqing looked out of the porthole of the plane, which happened to be the dike at the end of Wild Boar Ridge number 117. It seemed that the dike had just been blocked and then it was washed away by a huge wave. Hu Qingtian, who had been sitting in silence, smiled and said, maybe I can give it a try. A cold glint flashed across Zhao Xueqing's eyes. She said softly, Master Huo, forget it. A few people have already fallen into the flood. A hint of coldness gradually appeared on her fair and pretty face as she said indifferently, besides, there's an old friend of Master Kang's there. It should be the Sea Lady. Sea Lady? Wasn't the Blue Storm defeated by Master Kong? How dare they come? In the cabin, Hu Qingtian, Qin Yang and the others were stunned. They couldn't believe it. The next moment, Zhao Xueqing opened the cabin door and jumped out. Mistress, this is... several cabinet members suddenly exclaimed. They were scared silly. Next to them, King Arthur burst into tears and said, I knew it. Papa Zhang's accident happened so suddenly. How could Godmother take it? But Godmother. Next to him, Jiang Wan slapped him. She shouted, Little Arthur, what are you crying for? My cousin-in-law is not an ordinary person. Jiang Wan and her mother had moved to Sidoni. After all, Sidoni was developing very well. It was the most popular country for immigrants in the world. Jiang Wan and little Arthur were about the same age. They were both studying at the Royal Academy and had become good friends. However, this girl was very hot-tempered. She would beat little Arthur up whenever she disagreed with him, which made the Archbishop feel helpless. Little Arthur stopped crying not because he was hit by Jiang Wan but because he was shocked by the scene in front of him. He rubbed his eyes until they were red, but he still felt that the scene in front of him was unreal. Many cabinet members who saw this scene also opened their eyes wide, and their nails dug deep into their palms. Only Hu Qingtian looked calm and even a little excited. Mistress was going to start a massacre again. Zhao Xueqing jumped down from a helicopter that was hundreds of meters high. She did not die. In the process of falling, her skirt was slightly raised, and her plain clothes were like a lily blooming in the rain. Since embarking on the road of cultivation, Zhao Xueqing's clothes became more and more plain, as if they were not stained by dust. When she was more than 100 meters away from the breach point, she suddenly stopped. Her figure paused for a moment as if she was stepping on an invisible staircase. She walked down step by step. At this time, the people on the dam, including Zhang San and Li Si, all saw Zhao Xueqing falling from the sky and were suddenly stunned. In the minds of many people in Sidoni, Jiang Tian was the god and Zhao Xueqing was the queen. If Jiang Tian was the father of the nation, she was the mother of the nation. However, Zhao Xueqing had never shown her great power in Sidoni. In the war in France, she was responsible for destroying many air bases and supporting Jiang Tian. No one knew about her achievements. They only knew that Zhao Xueqing was very favored by the god of the beginning. Every time they went on an inspection trip, he would go hand in hand with her. But no matter what, in their impression, Zhao Xueqing was a kind, gentle woman, or rather an ordinary woman. However, at this moment, Zhao Xueqing suddenly showed a miracle which stunned everyone. Chapter 770. Zhao Xueqing's slender fingers reached out and grabbed at the air. Boom. Suddenly, the two trucks that weighed more than 3 tons flew out of the water and slowly rose into the air. Whoosh. She stepped into the air and flew to the 2 trucks as if she was walking on flat ground, saving Wang Wu and the other black man. A soft true essence wrapped around the 2 of them and sent them to the dam. Then Zhao Xueqing raised her hand and threw the 2 trucks into the dam. Whoosh. She raised her hand and grabbed again. A few hundred meters away, hundreds of sacks filled with sand and stones fell into the dam as if they were grabbed by an invisible crane. They were immediately blocked by the flood. Boom. Everyone was in an uproar. Countless Sidoni people were excited. They waved their arms and cheered for Zhou Xian. Amidst the thunderous cheers, Zhou Xian rushed to the surface of the Cass River. Pop, pop, pop. Zhou Xian walked forward step by step, faster and faster. The waves in front of her also became higher and higher. Dark clouds rolled and large raindrops brushed past her delicate cheeks as they flowed down. The violent wind blew her hair up. Suddenly the waves of the river changed. Tens of thousands of arrows were formed and pierced towards Zhou Xian with a sharp piercing sound. Oh my God, is the river god angry? On the shore, many people cried out in alarm when they saw this scene. They were stupefied. There were many legends in Sidoni. One of them was the river god of the Cass River who controlled the power of the flood. Once people angered her, she would rain and flood from the sky. In the past, some backward tribes would sacrifice boys and girls and throw them into the river to drown. Seeing this scene, many people were shocked. Even if there is a river god, they shouldn't drown their people. They should be under the rule of the god of the absolute beginning. Zhou Xian shouted. Yes. Many people nodded and felt that it made sense. Countless sharp water arrows shot over, but Zhou Xian didn't dodge and continued to move forward at a fixed speed. Some of the water arrows traveled hundreds of meters and landed on the shore, leaving deep holes in the reefs. It was a ghastly sight. However, the moment the water arrow hit Zhou Xian's body, it suddenly shattered and did not cause any harm to her. Come out. At this moment, Zhou Xian suddenly made a grabbing motion. Rumble. With a loud bang, turbid waves surged into the sky. A woman in golden heavy armor actually rushed out of the river and stood proudly in the air. It was the Sea Maiden. However, at this moment her entire body was covered in a strange metal armor, only revealing a pair of sharp eyes. Blue flames of high temperature shot out from the soles of his shoes, burning the water droplets with crackling sounds, and white mist rose into the air. Those metals flickered with a cold light. The lines were smooth and seamless. They looked extremely dense and tough. Just like the legendary Iron Man, his every move was extremely nimble and sci-fi. Kinetic skeleton. On the military helicopter, Qin Yang exclaimed. Rumor has it that the Pentagon and Blue Storm invested a lot of money in research and development. However, due to the lack of battery power and other problems, there was no progress for decades. I didn't expect it to be successfully developed. Everyone's expression was slightly stern. The Sea Maiden was actually the culprit behind the flood, and she was wearing such a strange armor. On the surface of the Cass River, Zhou Xian's face was filled with anger. Sea Maiden, you created a storm and flood, causing 23 casualties in our country. This is unforgivable. Madam Zhou Xian, it wasn't my intention to cause civilian casualties. My goal was to suppress your country's sky army. The Sea Maiden shook her head lightly, her eyes filled with contempt. Sea Maiden, my husband gave Blue Storm enough face by not killing you last time. I didn't expect you to dare come again. Do you think this is a no man's land? Do you think I can't kill you? Zhou Xian sneered. Of course I know that Madam Zhou Xian's cultivation is very strong. She's almost on par with Kong Teichu. The Sea Maiden was full of confidence and said proudly, but I have a super armor made of titanium alloy now. Even 100 consecutive attacks from an immortal state expert won't cause any damage. What can you do to me? Her eyes were sharp and her face was filled with mockery. Plus, Blue Storm has already infiltrated more than 200 super armor warriors to cooperate with my operation. I'm afraid we can break through even if the Sky Army comes. Killing you is as easy as snapping my fingers. Come out. Following her command, Li Muchio gave the order. Boom, boom. On the surface of the turbulent water, pillars of water shot up into the sky one after another. The super armor warriors revealed their true appearance and stood in a dense line in the air. There were dozens of them. Swoosh, swoosh. Hundreds of figures jumped out from the cliffs and forests on both sides of the Cass River like grasshoppers. Every step they took was like a heavy cannon striking the sky, shooting hundreds of meters away. When they landed, their feet caused the ground to tremble and crack, causing the earth to shake and the mountains to shake. In just a few leaps, they crossed thousands of meters and arrived at the river. These super armor warriors covered their faces with special glass masks, stepped on blue flames, and held firearms such as electromagnetic guns, crossbows, round shields, long swords, and other cold weapons. They were like extraterrestrials, full of futuristic vibes. They didn't look like they were from this world at all. They quickly formed a circle around Zhou Xian, surrounding her so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Sea Maiden, the United States and Blue Storm have been dormant for so long. Is this all they've come up with? Zhou Xian smiled contemptuously. Suddenly, like a phoenix soaring into the sky, her body rose steadily and reached a height of several hundred meters, almost the same height as the helicopter. She looked down at the Sea Maiden and the super armor warriors. Since you're here, let's fight. She's afraid. She's afraid of my tsunami attack. Below, the Sea Maiden's eyes were full of contempt. The matriarch is afraid that they'll destroy the dam and cause a tsunami. So she deliberately raced the battlefield. This way they can only shoot up. In the helicopter, Huqingtian's face was full of admiration. Yes, yes, yes. Beside him, Qinyang nodded. What are you waiting for? Let's fight. Huqingtian glanced at Zhao Yuankuan, Wei Feilong, and a few other top experts behind him. Everyone pressed a mirror-like device on their chests. Suddenly, a square-shaped package on their back seemed to come alive and changed rapidly. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Metal pieces flew out from their backs and floated on their chests, abdomens, arms, and heads. In the next moment, with soft cracking sounds, many metal pieces quickly meshed together, tightly wrapping them up. Many of the cabinet members were shocked to discover that. All of a sudden they turned into fully armored warriors. These armors flickered with golden light and were simple in design. However, they emitted a powerful and domineering aura, as if divine soldiers had descended from the heavens. Celestial armor. For the first time he appeared in front of everyone in shock. At the same time, in one of the helicopters, Qing Linzi let out a sharp whistle and muttered something. Hoo hoo hoo. One after another, the green-scaled fire owls flew over from afar. Their wings, which were several meters long, were connected together like clouds in the sky. Maybe she wants to borrow the power of the military helicopter? At this time, a blue storm warrior in super armor looked at Zhao Xian with contempt. But even a missile explosion can't kill us. Don't care about the helicopter, kill it. The sea girl slowly raised her right hand that was covered in sharp spikes and swung it down. Zhao Xian was one step ahead of them and swooped down from the sky. Zhao Xian's speed was extremely fast, like a ghost. Several super-armored warriors raised their electromagnetic guns and locked onto Zhao Xian within a second. Electric currents as thick as an arm shot toward Zhao Xian at 10 times the speed of sound. The speed of sound was 340 meters per second. 10 times the speed of sound was 3,400 meters per second. And Zhao Xian was only 1,000 meters away from them. From the time they fired to hitting Zhao Xian, it was theoretically less than 1/3 of a second. This speed was faster than most missiles. As for the speed of artillery shells, it was simply incomparable. In the blink of an eye, the 3 dazzling lightning bolts were less than a meter away from Zhao Xian. They were like lightning dragons that were about to strangle her. In fact, the moment they fired, Zhao Xian had already sensed the danger. The violence contained in these lightning bolts even surpassed Zhang Qianlei in Zeus Lightning Network and Lightning Sea. It was comparable to the attack of a human immortal. Boom. In that instant, Zhao Xian's pretty face was expressionless. Her mind instantly entered a mysterious state. All of her divine sense spread out into the sea of heaven and earth's spiritual qi and connected with it. Every trace of the lightning, every angle, and even the changes in the water vapor, clearly entered her sea of consciousness. Boom. The true essence in her body boiled like an ocean. The aura of the immortal body of the pure phoenix rose like a dragon, releasing a dazzling light. The immortal body of the pure phoenix was crystal clear. Blood flowed endlessly in her meridians like a surging river. An indomitable divine phoenix phantom that was dozens of meters tall enveloped her. Screech. A sharp screech sounded. The divine phoenix phantom flapped its wings. Zhao Xian shattered the void and teleported. Phoenix dances in the 9 heavens. Zhao Xian's skirt fluttered and her long sleeves flew across the air. Her seemingly weak and delicate body spun at an incredible angle, forcefully dodging the 3 electromagnetic energies. How is this possible? The sea maiden screamed like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Everyone else turned pale. That's an electromagnetic gun personally created by the descendants of the celestial gods. It can kill gods and immortals, surpass 10 times the speed of sound and raise the temperature of all things. Even if it's titanium alloy, it can even pierce through a cruiser. Some of the super armor warriors exclaimed in disbelief. Stop screaming. He's coming. The sea maiden swung her right hand with a serious expression. Just like Wolverine's transformation, 5 sharp metal blades emerged from the back of his hand. In fact, when Zhou Xian dodged the electromagnetic gun, she had already used the Phoenix Dance of the 9 Heavens movement technique to accelerate. After dodging the electromagnetic guns, her body was like a peerlessly sharp sword, easily crossing the distance of 1,000 meters and killing her way into the super-armored warriors. Chapter 771. Playing. Zhou Xian stomped down on the helmet of a super-armor warrior that was charging at her. Boom. Everyone saw a sea of blood appear in the glass cover. The flames under the metal boots suddenly burst, and the next moment the super-armor warrior fell into the surging river. Her seemingly delicate shoulder was lightly touched. The other super-armor warrior was like a bird that had been hit by a high-speed train. Whoosh. He flew hundreds of meters away, and a mist of blood seeped out from the gaps in his armor. He died instantly. Her sparkling and translucent fist gently pulled back. Zhou Xian's fist looked very small and soft, like a magnolia flower bud. It was not intimidating at all. But the next moment the jade-white fist suddenly moved forward, cutting through the curtain of rain. The intense friction between the fist and the air created a high temperature that vaporized the raindrops instantly. With a crackling sound, clouds of white mist bloomed in the air. Clang. The fist landed on a metal round shield. Strange and complicated patterns were engraved on the metal round shield. They were very obscure, ancient, and sci-fi, as if they were something from outer space. The round shield did not shatter, only leaving a shallow dent in the shape of a fist. The round shield jumped up and hit the super armor warrior's jaw and neck heavily. At a closer distance, it could be seen that the armor on their bodies was not a single piece. The metal pieces were connected by a special black fabric. This fabric did not belong to any known fiber or chemical material in the world. It was between a liquid and solid state, as if it had a life of its own. It could reassemble and transform in an instant. It should have been artificially created using some kind of advanced biological technology. In fact, when tested in Bell Labs, this special fabric could withstand cannon fodder attacks and withstand temperatures of a few thousand degrees. But at this moment, under the tremendous force of the metal shield, these fabrics were torn apart like paper and fluttered in the air. This super armor warrior's jaw and throat were all shattered by the round shield, and he died in an extremely simple manner. Fresh blood flowed onto the metal round shield and dyed the complicated lines into a thin red line. At this moment, Mila was so shocked that her soul almost left her body. Zhou Xian's attack was simple and straightforward, instantly killing 2 super armor warriors. It had to be known that these first-generation super armors were developed by the Celestial God Corporation. They were made from titanium alloy and plants, and they also had the most advanced shock-absorbing and compression systems. Run. Run. A thought appeared in the Sea Maiden's mind. The Sea Lady and the other 3 Grade 10 physical ability users were wearing second-generation super armors. It was made of aerospace alloy, which was tougher than titanium alloy. It should be able to withstand Zhou Xian's attack. But at this moment she was not willing to take the risk. The cooperation agreement between Blue Storm and the Dark Council was that Blue Storm was responsible for creating the flood to restrain Sky Army, while the Dark Council was responsible for direct combat. But now they were the ones who were caught in the crossfire. They were at a disadvantage. Besides, they had already completed their mission. There was no need for them to clash head-on with Zhou Xian and the others. Hoo. The doors of the military helicopters opened one after another, and Huqingtian led many heavenly military experts down. They were wearing sky-heavy armor and their speed of descent was extremely fast. It was as if they would hit the ground the next moment. Screech. But suddenly, one by one, the green-scaled fire owls spread their wings and flew over, steadily catching their respective masters. Stop them. Leave no one alive. Riding on his familiar mount, Huqingyun raised the god-slaying spear high and roared fiercely. Qing Linzi squeezed the green-scaled fiery owls under him and led hundreds of fiery owls toward Mila and the others. For the past few days the Sky Army soldiers had been exhausted by the flood, and their morale had been low. Now that they had seen the culprit who created the flood, their spirits and morale instantly returned to their bodies and were stimulated to the extreme. There was also a monstrous fighting spirit and anger. The fiery owls swept across like clouds, their wings covering the sky. The Sky Army's momentum was unstoppable. Qing Linzi commanded the Sky Army's green-scaled fiery owls to split into 3 torrents and surrounded the Blue Storm experts. What kind of aircraft is that? It looks like a type of big bird. But how can it be so fast? Can even break the sound barrier? Do intelligence officers eat shit? They don't even know that they have such an aircraft? Seeing this, the Sea Lady and the super armor warriors were all shocked. Their fighting spirit had already been suppressed by Zhou Xian to the point that it was like tofu. Now that they saw this frightening big bird, they were even more frightened. Retreat. The Sea Lady's feet stepped on the air and she didn't even turn around. Her metal boots shot out green flames like a rocket, and she flew backward as fast as lightning. Following her order, all the Blue Storm's super-armored warriors stepped on flames and switched from the rear to the front. They fired at the Sky Army with their electromagnetic guns while flying backward in an orderly manner at an extremely fast speed. At the same time, the billions of raindrops in the sky turned into sharp water arrows under Mila's control and shot toward the Sky Army's air cavalry. After all, the sky armor was personally created by Jiang Tian. Other than the electromagnetic guns, all other attacks were useless. The Sky Army quickly closed in and surrounded the super armor warriors. Their spears pierced through the void, their weapons glowed, and their swords flashed, shooting down the super armor warriors one by one. Since you're here, then stay here forever. In the sky, Zhao Xueqing sneered. She waved her right hand and a black light shot out like a black lightning bolt. Mila's second-generation armor allowed her to fly at twice the speed of sound, but that black light actually exceeded it by 2 to 3 times the speed of sound. This was a black iron shuttle. When Jiang Tian left Sidoni, he was worried that she did not have a suitable weapon, so he left it with Zhao Xueqing. Seeing this black iron shuttle flying toward her, Mila's expression changed drastically. She was afraid that this black light would turn her into dust if it hit her. Block it! She roared and placed the circular shield in front of her chest. At the same time, 6 first-generation super armor warriors raised their shields and blocked in front of her. Thump! The black iron flying shuttle pierced through the shield, causing the armored warrior to spit out a mouthful of blood and fall to the ground. Then, like a black iron flying shuttle, it pierced through the shields of the 5 warriors in an instant and sent them flying in the air like scraps of paper. Their special glass masks were stained with blood and dripping down. Apparently, none of these super armor warriors had survived. However, after being blocked by the 6 super armor warriors, the black iron shuttle did not have much strength left when it struck Mila's shield. Clang! A loud sound rang out. Mila's shield and body both shook. The Sea Maiden didn't die. Instead, she took advantage of the situation and borrowed the force of the recoil to escape into the distance at an even faster speed. At this time, Zhao Xueqing was about to give chase after throwing the shuttle, but her figure suddenly paused and she turned to look at an inconspicuous super armor warrior. This super armor warrior's special glass mask was black, and his face could not be seen clearly. Only his eyes were incomparably bright, like 2 divine lamps that had been shining for eons, projecting a cold yet dazzling radiance. No one saw that behind the black mask his face was rapidly aging and he was rapidly becoming thinner. Moreover, his hands were not covered by armor like the others. Instead, they were exposed to the air. Therefore, one could see that his hands were translucent like glue, and the blue blood vessels and bones inside could be seen clearly. His hands were forming mysterious hand seals that did not seem to belong to any known cultivation system. Seeing his eyes that were like divine lamps, Zhao Xueqing's mind was in turmoil, and her face suddenly turned pale. The black iron shuttle that was originally going to pierce Mila almost lost control. Zhao Xueqing's delicate body swayed twice in the air. Professor's father, Kane, one of the founders of Blue Storm and a high-ranking member of the Universe Shield, He has a quarter of the deity bloodline. In order to avenge his son, he's burning his essence, blood and spiritual power. Zhou Xian is dead for sure. What a pity. Rumor has it that Kong Teichu has already died in the Sword Mount. Otherwise he would also be here. Many thoughts appeared in Mila's mind, and then she made a prompt decision and waved her hand. Kill Zhou Xian. Protect the matriarch. Kill that guy with the black mask. Tian realized that Zhou Xian was in a disadvantageous situation. With a shake of the Godslayer spear, he sent an armored warrior flying while shouting with all his might. The other party seemed to have an extremely powerful spiritual type expert who did not hesitate to burn his lifespan and spiritual power to suppress the matriarch's magic power. Under such circumstances, Zhou Xian's strength fell sharply. Relying on her physical body alone, it was very likely that she would be killed by the electromagnetic gun. Kill. Many of the Sky Troop aerial cavalry roared and controlled the green-scaled fire owls to split into two groups. Dozens of people rushed toward Zhou Xian, forming a human shield to firmly encircle Zhou Xian. Dozens of people charged toward the strange man with the black mask. At this time, many Blue Storm soldiers also fired their electromagnetic guns. Countless electromagnetic energy pierced through the void, burning the rain and strangling Zhou Xian and the others. Bang! 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 The celestial armor was very strong and could block most of the electromagnetic energy, but the physical impact was no small matter. One after another, the Sky Troop aerial cavalry soldiers were sent flying, their mouths stained with blood. But no one retreated. They continued to press forward, unafraid of death, and intercepted the electromagnetic energy without hesitation. At this time they were not afraid of death. They only knew that they were Master Kang's disciples and students, and Zhou Xian was Master Kang's lover. How could they watch as Zhou Xian died? The people in the fierce battle did not notice that at this time, a military helicopter was flying in from afar. To these super experts, the military helicopter was almost a negligible threat. Suddenly the door of the helicopter opened. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. One after another, flying swords cut through the raindrops, tore through the curtain of rain, and pulled out streaks of white turbulence as they broke through the air. A total of 9 flying swords slashed toward the armored warrior with the black mask at 3 times the speed of sound. Chapter 772. Wuxia's Flying Swords. Humph. A disdainful snort came from behind the black mask. He boldly raised his hand and grabbed at the air with his translucent palm. Suddenly, the flying swords were suspended 10 meters in front of him like rockets that had lost their power. The 9 flying swords seemed to have been immobilized and could not move forward at all. It seemed that they would fall in the next moment. Explode. In the distance, a sharp and cold shout came from the helicopter that had just joined the battlefield. The hilts of the 9 flying swords suddenly burst out with bright lightning. The 9 lightning bolts formed a lightning dragon about 10 meters long and as thick as a bucket. It rushed out with its teeth and claws bared, completely enveloping the black-masked man. There's still lightning? The professor's father let out a surprised and shrill scream. He did not have time to cast a spell to summon his life-saving means. His flesh and bones turned into powder in an instant and he died. Could it be that Zhang Daozhang is back? At this time, hearing the explosion, Zhou Xian suddenly turned her head to look at the person on the helicopter who killed the professor's father with the second-generation flying sword that belonged to Zhang Qianlei. Her black hair brushed past her gentle face, covering her surprised eyes. She did not expect to see Tang Linglong in Sidoni. Seeing so many heavenly army soldiers disregarding their own safety and flying in front of Zhou Xian to act as meat shields, Tang Linglong felt a sense of loss in her heart. Or it could be said that the sense of loss in her heart was unprecedentedly severe. After she took off from Wuxia's Yanjing and arrived in Sidoni, she was burning with anxiety. She was in a hurry and did not look at Sidoni carefully. After taking off from Tianqing School, she thought that she was going to see Zhou Xian. Her heart calmed down and she was in the mood to look at the grass and trees in Sidoni. The flood reached the heavens and the rain poured down, but the people of Sidoni did not retreat. Hundreds of thousands of people fought alongside the Sky Army to resist the flood. Among them there were ordinary people like Zhang San, Li Si and Wang Wu. There were elites like Bai Choufei, Tang Shaozi and Chancellor Andrew. There were also martial arts experts like Hu Qingtian. When she passed by the highest peak of Mount Surad Jiuxiao Peak, she suddenly saw a huge building. On Ninth Cloud Peak, hundreds of steel pillars as thick as the huge pillars of the Parthenon were deeply embedded in the earth and the woods within a radius of 10 square miles. On the platform that was supported by iron pillars in the style of steampunk, there was a huge metal flower that looked like a sunflower or a lotus. Its petals were stacked and it had a radius of 1 kilometer, occupying half of the sky. On this building, the construction workers were densely packed like ants on a huge palace. Under the steel monster there was a group of white buildings. They were probably temporary housing for the construction workers. Compared to the steel monster, they were as delicate as a few blocks of building blocks. The Kuelian was more than 3 kilometers high from the ground. It was like a huge palm that opened to the sky, and it had an extraordinary power. Even if Tang Linglong was overlooking this building from a helicopter hundreds of meters above the ground. However, compared to this gigantic steel monster, she still felt tiny as an ant. Even if the Eiffel Tower of Paris was moved here, it would look like a small toy. Tang Linglong was shocked and had difficulty breathing. She was about to ask Sasaki Kaisha what it was. Suddenly she heard a sound. It was a low and vigorous buzzing sound, so vigorous and powerful that even the high-speed rotation of the helicopter's propeller was suppressed. Above the Kuelian, blue electric sparks spurted out. At a height of thousands of meters, the sea of clouds emitted a faint blue light. The light was very weak, but it made her skin itch. At this time in the mountain forest, a black shadow spiraled into the sky. Tang Linglong didn't expect there to be so many birds in the depths of the Sidoni jungle. Then a scene that made her heart skip a beat appeared. Those birds suddenly disappeared. They should have been vaporized in an instant. Not even a drop of dust was left. This is the Kuelian defense strike system jointly designed by Master Kong and Mr. Zhang Chenzhen. Sasaki Kaisha introduced. It took more than a year and more than $10 billion to build. This is their daily experiment. It seems that this time it didn't succeed. They have tested it hundreds of times. What is this used for? Tang Linglong asked. Sidoni's national defense and global attack. Sasaki Kaisha said lightly, it can even hit space satellites in outer space. Far more powerful than nuclear weapons. She stretched herself and sighed casually. In order to raise funds to build this Kuelian defense strike system, Mistress sold all her gold and silver jewelry. Tang Linglong lowered her eyes and was silent for a long time. When the Kuelian defense strike system was gradually left behind by the helicopter, she couldn't help but look back and ask, what technology are they using? How would I know such a top secret? This is a secret controlled by the Refining Hall and the Sidoni Academy of Sciences. Sasaki Kaisha smiled. A country is much more complicated than a sect. There are a lot of rules. Otherwise, the secret would have been leaked long ago. But I've heard from the people in the Academy of Sciences that it's called refusion technology. In short, it's using jade, crystals and other raw materials to form energy. On the way, Tang Linglong was lost in thought. She didn't talk anymore, but her heart was already in turmoil. She didn't expect that Jiang Tian and Zhou Xueqing had already pushed Sidoni to such a high position and led everyone to such a great height. Compared with Jiang Tian's earth-shattering achievements, her love affair was really not worth mentioning. As the woman behind Jiang Tian, Zhou Xueqing had been under unimaginable pressure and sacrificed a lot. Therefore, when she saw that Zhou Xueqing was in danger above Cass Lake, Tang Linglong had an indescribable feeling in her heart. There was a bit of jealousy, a bit of respect, a bit of pity, and a bit of regret that she didn't want to admit. But in the next moment her eyes were fixed on the warrior in the black glass mask. At this time she didn't know that the man was Professor's father, one of the founders of the Blue Storm, a leader of the Universe Shield, and even a descendant of the heavenly deities. However, her divine sense had sensed the danger of this person before Hu Qingtian did, and she sensed his powerful spiritual power. Tang Linglong concluded that he was the key to the Blue Storm's operation, not the Sea Girl. Therefore she decided to kill this person first. During the time when Jiang Tian was in seclusion at the ancient Wudong, Zhang Qianlei and Tang Linglong became friends despite their age difference. Zhang Qianlei was also a braggart, so he gave her a lot of disposable flying swords and taught her how to control lightning. At this moment she didn't hesitate to use 9 disposable flying swords, the kind that carried lightning. In fact, Professor's father had fought countless battles and had once fought with sword control and flying sword techniques. Therefore he took the initiative in a second and controlled the 9 disposable flying swords. But he didn't expect that this thing was a double kick with lightning. He was instantly electrocuted into a cloud of flying ash. Zhou Xian, who was drowsy and extremely tired, regained clarity the moment Professor's father died. Her magic power and divine ability surged like a tide and poured into her body. The next moment, the black iron shuttle that was about to fall to the ground soared into the sky like a raging dragon that had just woken up. At a speed faster than lightning from an unbelievable angle, the sword pierced through the many water curtains and super armor of the sea wolf before piercing through her chest. The sea girl's body exploded. Half of it turned into flowing water, while the other half turned into a rain of sparkling flesh that scattered on the ground. The army was defeated like a landslide. The Blue Storm experts fled like stray dogs, but they were intercepted and surrounded by the Sky Army's air cavalry. Zhou Xian's originally unsteady footsteps suddenly became steady. She raised her eyebrows slightly and quickly poured in her true essence. Her figure rushed forward, pulled out the belt in the middle of her plain skirt and swung it out. The soft belt was filled with an unparalleled amount of true essence and instantly became extremely tough. Like the sharpest sword, it sent many super armor warriors flying like golf balls. Every super armor warrior who was hit had blood stains on the glass mask and the special fabric between the gaps of their armor. He punched out again and again. Although her fists looked delicate, they were filled with power that made people tremble in fear. They had the power of a mountain crashing down. With every punch, a super armor warrior would explode along with their armor. Her belt was like iron and her fist was as heavy as a mountain. At the same time, the black iron flying shuttle curved in the air and chased after the Blue Storm members who had fled into the distance like maggots. Flang, flang, flang. Amidst the continuous explosions, the black iron flying shuttle pierced through the fish that escaped the net one by one. A rain of blood fell and pieces of armor flew everywhere. In a short 10 minutes, the super armor army of Blue Storm had all died on the spot. The torrential rain that had lasted for several days finally stopped. In the sky, the dark clouds dispersed, revealing a delightful shade of blue. Bright rays of sunlight poured down. Long live, absolute beginning. Long live the God Empress. Below, Zhang San, Li Si and thousands of Sidoni's people immediately kowtowed on the ground, prostrating themselves and shouting "Long live the God Empress," as if they were loyal believers seeing their god. The crowd was so densely packed that one couldn't see the end of it. Moreover, even more people rushed over to pay their respects, and their praises were like thunderclaps that shot into the sky, spreading for miles. Wuxia, salvage all the super armor warriors and transport them to the sex refining hall. Also, cooperate with the National Academy of Sciences for analysis. Zhou Xian's order had the power to topple mountains and overturn seas. Many experts moved, and the National Academy of Sciences immediately rushed to the scene. Zhou Xian had already landed on the dam and then walked toward the unconscious Wang Wu, a trace of regret on her face. Chapter 773. God Empress, he's probably not going to make it. He's been dead for a long time. Zhang San sighed. He can still be saved. Zhou Xian crouched down and hugged the mud-covered Wang Wu. She pressed one hand against his back and used her art to force the dirty water out of his mouth. Everyone was moved to the point tears welled up in their eyes when they saw this, and all of them knelt on the ground and kowtowed madly. In their eyes, Zhou Xian was not human but a god from the heavens. If Jiang Tian was the sky of Genesis, then Zhou Xian was Mother Earth, supreme and worshipped. But at this moment she was willing to save a lazy drunkard. At this moment, in their eyes, Zhou Xian's body seemed to be exuding a holy light. Zhou Xian's slender fingers pried open his mouth and fed him a pill, using the humane phoenix heart art to refine it. 10 minutes later, Wang Wu still had not woken up. His face was still purple. Zhou Xian still did not give up. Her true essence madly flowed into his body, causing a white mist to rise from his body. Another 15 minutes passed. Zhou Xian's hands trembled and sweat poured down her face. He seemed to be exerting great effort. Suddenly her delicate body shook violently. She opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. Mistress. Give up. The dead can't be revived. Qin Yang dropped to his knees and pleaded with tears in his eyes. Mistress, take care of your body. Mistress, preserving your strength is more important. There's still a great battle to come. Huqing Tian Wei Feilong Zhao Yuankuan, and the other Heaven Army soldiers also dropped to their knees and cried out. Mistress, don't hold on. You've just been through a great battle and have expended too much energy. Many cabinet members and the people who had heard the news also dropped to their knees, their eyes brimming with tears as they urged her. All of you get up. His soul is still here. It's just that his body is faking death. Zhao Xueqing's pale face was extremely calm. She used her art and poured her true essence into Wang Wu's body as if it was free. At this moment the entire place was silent. No one uttered another word. Only tears of gratitude flowed freely and surged in their hearts. Suddenly Wang Wuga. He took a deep breath and his body twitched violently a few times before he came back to life. All right, I'm alive. Zhao Xueqing smiled. She relaxed and fell backward. Sasaki Kaisha hurriedly supported her, tears falling like rain. Mistress, are you okay? It's just a weak body. It's all right. Zhao Xueqing swallowed a few pellets and smiled. Get a helicopter and send him to the hospital. You're here. Zhao Xueqing looked at Tang Linglong calmly. She thought that this girl would retort and ask why she couldn't come. Then Zhao Xueqing could talk about Jiang Tian, who was besieged by the sword catacomb and whose fate was unknown. Then they could talk about some serious topics. Unexpectedly, Tang Linglong was silent for a full 5 seconds. She actually walked to Zhao Xueqing and kowtowed, saying respectfully, Tang Linglong, Hall Master of the Ancient Martial Arts Hall of Tianqing School, greets Mistress. I'm at Mistress's disposal. Zhao Xueqing calmly helped her up, then said lightly, Good. Now is the time when we need people. You came just in time. Tang Linglong had already learned a lot of core information on the way here. At this moment she volunteered, Sister Qinga, I'm willing to go to Europe to rescue Jiang Bangxia and the others. You're not going to the sword catacomb to save your master? Aren't you worried about him? Zhao Xueqing said with a faint smile. After seeing Sister Qing'er and the heavenly army annihilate the blue storm, I'm very confident in my master now. Tang Linglong said seriously. On the other hand, the kidnapping of Jiang Bangxia and the others will make us hesitate. It will affect the war situation and shake the morale of the army. Now that Hongmeng is not out, the enemy is invading. The semi-hidden sects of Wuxia are also in danger. Zhao Xueqing said calmly, Your master asked you to stay in the ancient martial arts hall to help Yi Zhantian and the long formation guard Wuxia. Sister Qing'er, Wuxia is a superpower after all. Who dares to provoke it? Tang Linglong said, and the long formation strength is rising steadily. They don't need me at all. Zhao Xueqing pondered for a moment, then finally nodded and said, All right. You go now. Yes. Wait. Zhao Xueqing took out the god's bone finger dagger from the storage ring and handed it over. She said calmly, This was left by your master. Take it for self-defense. Thank you, Sister Qing'er. Lingling, you're getting more and more comfortable calling me Sister Qing'er. Have you forgotten that I'm your master's wife? Zhao Xueqing said with a faint smile. The enemy is right in front of us. Sister Qing'er, let's not care about these details, shall we? Tang Linglong smiled faintly and said meaningfully. Yes, the enemy is right. Let's put the country's affairs first. Zhao Xueqing gave her a few more protective jade talismans and artifacts. Tang Linglong suddenly realized that Zhao Xueqing understood her and Jiang Tian's thoughts very well. Therefore she suddenly understood why Jiang Tian was so loyal to Zhao Xueqing. Zhao Xueqing turned to Huqing Tian and said, Old Hua, take Zhao Yuankuan, Wei Feilong and 20 other transcendent grandmasters back to Wuxia and help Yi Zhantian. Mistress. Huqing Tian hesitated. Now that the gathering of darkness had appeared, and with the help of top organizations such as Blue Storm, Sidoni was the most dangerous. Don't forget that Sidoni was founded with the support of Wuxia. That is his homeland. Zhao Xueqing's face was firm and determined. Yes. We will follow Mistress's orders. After a moment of silence, everyone's face brightened and they all bowed. After Jiang Tian entered the sword catacomb, he had not come out for more than 3 months. Many overlords began to feel restless. Many overlords speculated that he must have been trapped in the sword catacomb and the one-day imprisonment array. Otherwise he would have come out long ago. The fall of Kang Techu marked the beginning of a great war. Rumors of Sidoni in the Dark World spread like wildfire. On the night of June 1, 2011 in the suburbs of Yanjin. On the surface this place looked like an ordinary factory. However, only a few people knew that this was the base of the Long Formation. The rain was heavy. Boom. A bolt of lightning flashed across the sky. Whoosh. Whoosh. Kikik, today I will destroy the entire dragon group. After all, they killed at least 100 blood breeds in Wuxia. The leader was Duke Dracula, who was as powerful as an immortal state warrior. This time he led dozens of kindred overlords to fight against the martial arts families and sects in Wuxia. He had killed many martial arts overlords and gained a lot. Suddenly, a figure with a dragon-like aura soared into the sky from the dragon group's encampment. He held a long sword in his hand and stood proudly in the void. Vile spawn, how can my magnificent Wuxia be tainted by the likes of you? The 4 spiritual generals, the group of 8 and other overlords of the Long Formation came out from their hiding places and surrounded the kindred. Xianxia, you are only half a step away from the immortal state. You are no match for me. Duke Dracula was not afraid at all. He laughed wildly. Admit your defeat, kneel down and kowtow to me. Then I will bite you and you will be my blood slave. What do you think? Is that so? Xianxia snorted coldly. Without another word he struck out with his sword. Clang. The sword radiance spanned over 100 meters. More than 10 members of the blood race were killed and their heads were sent flying. Dracula hurriedly retreated, but a large wound was left on his chest from which blood dripped down. Dracula used the secret art of the kindred to heal the wound, but he still stared at Xianxia in disbelief. You have reached the immortal state? No. I am half a step away from the immortal state. Xianxia roared and punched Dracula. The punch sent him flying dozens of meters away and half of his body exploded. Kill all the kindred. Leave no one alive. The black tortoise's iron fists were like mountains, crushing a count-level vampire with a single punch. He let out a loud roar, his aura as imposing as a mountain. Those who offend the Wuxia will be killed. Red Sparrow snorted and walked forward with her sword, decapitating one kindred overlord after another. The battle left a trail of corpses and rivers of blood. The kindred screamed in agony. Fortunately, there were not many residents in the suburbs. Otherwise, the screams of the kindred overlords would leave a lasting scar in their hearts. Duke Dracula invaded the Long Formation base and was killed by Xianxia and the generals of the Long Formation. When this news spread, the entire world was shocked. Xianxia is half a step away from the immortal state? That's too fast. Not only that, Xianxia killed Duke Dracula and killed 63 kindred overlords who invaded the Wuxia Long Formation. None of them survived. Under Xianxia's leadership, the Wuxia Long Formation went after the henchmen of the Gathering of Darkness in Wuxia. Everyone was shocked. They thought that since Kang Techu was not in Wuxia, most of the overlords had gone to Sidoni and Wuxia was weak. Who would have thought that a half step away from the immortal state would appear out of nowhere? But soon after, a piece of news shook the underground world like a nuclear explosion, leaving everyone dumbfounded. Xianxia has joined the Tianqing school and is now Kang Techu's disciple. It was Kang Techu who pushed him to the immortal state and half step away from the immortal state. The name of the Tianqing school shocked the world. Xianxia, the son of Yi Tianren and the leader of the Long Formation, was willing to be Kang Techu's disciple. Moreover, there were rumors that Xianxia had been stuck at the immortal state for many years. He had occupied the Long Formation for so many years but still could not make a breakthrough. It was obvious that he did not have the opportunity to break through to the immortal state. But now Kang Techu had pushed him to the immortal state. He was now on par with Zhang Qianlei, the Daoist master of the Republic of China and the sect leader of the semi-hidden faction. Everyone was more convinced of Kang Techu's power. He's so powerful. Is he really dead? This thought appeared in many people's minds and they were no longer so certain. Then Huqing Tian Wei Feilong Zhao Yuankuan and other overlords arrived and joined the defense of Wuxia. The 3 of them were all above the immortal state. Their murderous aura was so strong that it made people's hearts palpitate. In the grassland of Inner Mongolia, Xianxia led a group of overlords to pursue the young prince of the wolf tribe and other overlords of the wolf tribe. Chapter 774. Break. Xianxia's hair and beard fluttered in the wind. The god-killing spear pierced through the air like a dragon emerging from the sea. The spear seemed to have the power to overturn rivers and seas. It pierced through the heart of the wolf prince, who was as powerful as an immortal state warrior, and then slaughtered all his henchmen. Clank. A few days after Xianxia killed the wolf prince in the Qin Creek, Zhou Xian was enraged. He swung the crimson blade and killed an elder priest of the Covenant of Darkness, who was as powerful as a half-step immortal state warrior. In the Miao village in Xianxia, Wei Feilong led the group of heroes. Wearing the heavenly armor made by Jiang Tian and wearing the protective jade talismans, they slaughtered the dozen or so grand wizards of the Dark Parliament as if they were vegetables. None of them were spared. These evil Western priests had come to incite the grand wizards of the Miao land to rebel against Wuxia. Now even the grand wizards of the Miao land were killed. But this was only the beginning. In the Tulip Mansion in London, England, a girl in an azure Daoist robe and carrying a long sword broke into the Tulip Mansion and killed the blood ancestor named Cage with the god's finger bone dagger in her hand. Then she killed 8 powerful vampires and grand wizards and left with Jiang Banxia and the others who were under house arrest. In the fierce battle with the British military police who came to intercept them, this charming and lovely girl in a Daoist robe, who seemed to be in her early 20s, showed a combat power that was not inferior to the immortal state. She cut an armored car in half with a slash of her sword. Many people couldn't believe it. Some of the blood ancestors in Europe were strong and some were weak, but the weakest one was as powerful as an immortal state warrior. But then blood ancestor Cage was killed by a young girl. Had she surpassed the immortal state? That was unbelievable. Later, news came out that the girl was called Tang Linglong and she was Kong Teichu's senior disciple. Even Yi Zhantian, Xianxia and the others had to address her as senior sister. On the same day, Ancient Wudong also announced that Ancient Wudong had changed its name to Tianqing School's Ancient Wudong branch. It would fight alongside the Huaxiaolong formation, declare war on the Covenant of Darkness, resist the foreign powerhouses and protect the safety of Wuxia. But this was not the most shocking part. After that, the Singapore Chinese Association announced to the world that it was now the Tianqing School's Singapore branch. It represented the Tianqing School in controlling Singapore, suppressing Southeast Asia, and declaring war on the European Dark Parliament. Immediately afterward, the Daoist temple master of South Korea's Tanjun Daoist Temple, the nation's goddess, Li Jinju, announced the reorganization of the Tianqing School's Tanjun branch and declared war on the Covenant of Darkness. When this news came out, the whole world was shocked. One must know that Tanjung is the common religion of the South Koreans. He is almost like a religion and a god. He has been rooted in South Korea for thousands of years and can influence the decisions of the government. It was shocking that such a large organization would voluntarily become the Tianqing School's branch. After that, Sasaki Aisha represented the Cherry Blossom Society, Ishii Yurin represented the Yamaguchi Gumi, the Fucking Gang, the Great Circle and many others. One by one, the superpowers around the world announced that they would become the Tianqing School's branch and declare war on the Covenant of Darkness. They would hunt down the members of the Covenant of Darkness on a global scale. When Saudani and France went to war, these organizations were actually involved, but they only supported in the dark and did not expose themselves. This time all of them revealed themselves and revealed their true colors. Many overlords were shocked. The Tianqing School's enormous power and Sidonie, the 6th most powerful country in the world, were no match for them. Moreover, there were many immortal state overlords and half-step human deities. Even the Hong sect and Kunlun sect were nothing compared to them. On this day, the Taiqing School's name shook the entire dark world. Many overlords who were hiding in the dark felt a chill run down their spines. Kong Teichu's plan was too far-sighted and thorough. He had cultivated such a powerful force behind the scenes. Even if he'd really perished like the legends said, the general situation had already been established. The colossus that was the Heavenly Clear sect was already filled with geniuses and experts were as numerous as trees in the forest. What were the chances of the Dark Parliament winning? After all, the Tianqing School had taken the initiative to attack the Covenant of Darkness. They had killed the Blood Ancestor and the little prince of the wolf tribe of the grassland before the war even began. However, the Covenant of Darkness was far more powerful than anyone had imagined. Therefore, Blood Ancestor Ali announced the start of the war through the dark web and other overlords' forums. The time has come for the final ultimatum. The Tianqing school did not admit their guilt and accept our trial. Instead, they attacked us first and killed many members of the Covenant of Darkness. Therefore, we have no choice but to fight a just war. Sidoni did not heed our warning to expel the Tianqing school and Kong Teichu's henchmen. Therefore, we cannot avoid unnecessary casualties. He raised his arms and shouted, full of murderous intent. Next, the Covenant of Darkness will attack Sidoni at any time and destroy the Tianqing school and all his henchmen. The situation outside was changing rapidly, and the war was on the verge of breaking out. In the Sword Catacomb, Jiang Tian had been on the verge of a breakthrough after taking the Red Flame Fate pill and refining it for several days. Boom. The milk-like spiritual marrow liquid rippled and splashed like pearls falling on a jade plate. Streams of extremely rich and abundant spiritual qi poured into Jiang Tian's head like white dragons. Jiang Tian also revealed the Dharma form of the indestructible golden body. It was 100 meters tall and emitted endless golden light. There were 9 spiritual qi dragons in total. Each of them was hundreds of meters long. They broke through the roof and swooped down. They were like 9 giant dragons covering the sky, coiling around Jiang Tian. 9 dragons covering the sky, spiritual qi infusing. At this time, Jiang Tian was surrounded by 9 mighty spiritual qi dragons. He was like a god emperor who carried the eternal blue sky on his back. He was like a Buddha sitting cross-legged on a lotus throne. The aura of immortality pervaded the air as if there was divinity, and there was a sense of transcendence. He is really going to become an immortal or a god. Situ Shao and Wolf King Alexander were dumbfounded by this scene. It was like a dream. They could see Jiang Tian's extraordinary figure even when they were a few miles away from Jiang Tian. The abundant spiritual qi poured into Jiang Tian's indestructible golden body. Every gung metal grain was nourished by the spiritual qi. Billions of gung metal grains and the vast sea of Dao patterns seemed to be evolving and becoming more tenacious. This kind of spiritual qi infusing had been going on for dozens of days. When the spiritual marrow was only half of the original. Suddenly, Jiang Tian snorted and opened his eyes. A purple thunderbolt exploded in Jiang Tian's eyes. The purple thunderbolt suddenly shot a few kilometers away like a thunder punishment from the 9 heavens. A forest was directly shattered and a mountain more than 300 meters high was razed to the ground. Oh my God! Wolf King jumped in fright. Seeing this, Situ Shao also exclaimed with a solemn face, Master Kang's thunderbolt is probably far more powerful than Zeus's. The more he thought, the more frightened he became. And Zeus's thunder control was actually relying on external forces, some crystals that contained thunder energy, but Master Kang's is real Dharma power. The thunderbolt shooting from his eyes is really terrifying. I've finally stepped into the 9th level of qi refinement. I didn't expect the divine power to be the purple lightning thunder eyes. Jiang Tian let out a complicated sigh. At this time, the purple thunderbolt suddenly shrank into Jiang Tian's pupils. Around his pupils, a strange purple ring was faintly formed. In the ring, there were strange patterns that seemed to be intertwined with lightning. Perfected qi refinement level 9. At this time, Jiang Tian's physique, true yuan, spirit, dharma power, and divine power had all reached an unprecedented height. He was only a step away from foundation establishment. And because of this, some of the divine powers that were about to be unlocked in foundation establishment had already begun to show signs and could even be partially used. The reason why the gung metal divine body was the strongest immortal body in the cultivation world, and was even called a divine body, was because its divine powers were infinite and varied. In the foundation establishment stage, there were already 9 transformations of the divine body. In the cultivation world, physiques were also called root bones and spirit roots. Generally, those who had a unique physique of one of the 5 elements were considered cultivation geniuses. They were also called natural spirit roots and their cultivation speed was extremely fast. Dual spirit roots or dual physiques of the 5 elements were geniuses if they were compatible. If they were incompatible, they were trash. Wind, thunder, ice, and darkness were all called variant spirit roots. They were extremely powerful and their cultivation speed was not inferior to celestial spirit roots. They were also called geniuses. Those who had 5 spirit roots of the 5 elements were called pseudo-spirit roots or mixed spirit roots. They basically had no hope of cultivation. According to Zhang Tian's knowledge, there were only a handful of cultivation techniques that were suitable for this Bell physique. And even if one had a cultivation technique, they might not be able to successfully cultivate. As for those who had spirit roots of the 5 elements and variant spirit roots, there were only a handful of them in the entire universe. As a result, the cultivation techniques that were suitable for this strange spirit root were a blank slate in many of the more backward cultivation star fields for hundreds of millions of years. Experts with this type of physique were also extremely rare. Those who had this type of physique were basically synonymous with trash. But Zhang Tian had cultivated for tens of thousands of years and had seen too many cultivation techniques. He knew that this type of physique was called the chaotic physique. It was actually very rare and powerful. If one could obtain the cultivation technique, they could also reach unimaginable heights. After Zhang Tian had arrived in the god realm, he had seen a Hongmeng god who had cultivated using this type of physique. Furthermore, his cultivation speed was extremely fast. The foundation establishment chapter of the Gung Metal Divine Body technique was suitable for this type of chaotic physique. During the foundation establishment stage, the 9 changes of chaos would be produced. The 5 elements divine powers and 3 variant divine powers would evolve in the body. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, thunder, and darkness. These divine powers evolved were extremely powerful and could crush those produced by the same type of heavenly spirit root. Furthermore, they could use the heavenly Tao's law of mutual promotion and restraint to suppress any type of heavenly spirit root powerhouse. Originally, Qi refining stage 9 was very close to the foundation establishment stage. Since the Gung Metal Divine Body was very special, it was very possible to activate the 9 changes of the foundation establishment stage. It was one of the metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, thunder, and darkness divine powers. But what Zhang Tian did not expect was that when he broke through to Qi refining stage 9, he actually activated the thunder divine powers of the mutated spirit root in advance. It was not the water divine powers that he had expected. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. Sigh, I've already been here for a few months. I don't know if those fellows outside will think that I've fallen and make a move on Sidoni and Tianqing school. A hint of mockery appeared at the corner of Zhang Tian's mouth, and his eyes gradually turned cold. Chapter 775. If Nie Mingyuan really rose from the ashes, Zhang Tian was not afraid. Originally, he had already thought of a few ways to destroy him, let alone now that he had the purple lightning eyes. Even though the purple lightning eye was only a lesser power of the lightning element, it was still invincible on Earth. Moreover, this type of divine ability was extremely young and firm, violent, ferocious and mighty. It specialized in restraining all sorts of evil, filthy and gloomy things. Demonic qi, ghosts, great demons, evil spirits and so on couldn't even stand a chance against this lightning god art. Following Zhang Tian's breakthrough, even though they were still several kilometers away from Zhang Tian, the Wolf King and Situ Shao could clearly feel a strong wave of mana. They even felt suffocated and had difficulty breathing. The results of Master Kang's seclusion this time are too obvious. His cultivation is too strong now. The moon-worshipping Wolf King Alexander was so excited that his entire body was trembling. Once Master Kang comes out of seclusion this time, won't he turn the outside world upside down? Situ Zhao's eyes were filled with excitement as if he had seen a deity. After pondering for a long time he sighed. At the very least he can kill heavenly immortals and sacred venerables. I'm afraid that even the red-robed archbishops would be no match for him. What are you waiting for? Go and take out the European Union and the United States. The moon-worshipping Wolf King couldn't wait any longer. It roared loudly with murderous intent. He was once hunted down by the European Union and the United States. Later he relied on Russia to gain a slim chance of survival, so he was a little vengeful. I'm afraid Master won't come out this time. I'll have to break through again. After all, this formation is very hard to come by. Situ Shao smiled and shook his head. Another breakthrough? The so-called foundation establishment? The moon-worshipping Wolf King was shocked, and his heart almost exploded. Master Kang was already so strong. If he broke through again, how strong would he become? Indeed, just as Situ Xiao had guessed, although Jiang Tian had broken through once, he did not choose to come out of seclusion in the end. Instead, he swallowed a foundation-building pill unhurriedly and sighed with a long gaze. This time acceleration spell formation is just an imitation made by a strong person from Earth. It's very crude and primitive. During the first month and a half, time was still flowing at a rapid speed, but after half a month, the effective time acceleration was greatly reduced. At first, 1 day was equivalent to 10 years, then to 8 years, to 5 years, to 3 years, and now 1 day is only equivalent to 1 year. I'm afraid that if this formation continues to operate for a few more days, it will consume all of its magic power. That means that I only have a few years left. I hope I can break through to foundation establishment. On the outside, the entire dark world was shaken after Ollie's speech. Many overlords around the world turned their attention to Sidoni, Jiuxiao Peak, and Tianqing School. Whether it was the Medicine King Group, Tianqing School, or Sidoni, they were all prepared for the worst. They were ready for the war that could come at any time. The senior executives of the Medicine King Group, Zhang Wanqing, Yi Ziwei, Jiang Zhixing, Su Ruoqing, and many others in Wuxia all retreated to the Tianqing School dojo. They were protected by the Zhou Xian Eternity spell formation. Even if the sky was filled with artillery fire, they would not be harmed at all. When Jiang Zhixing retreated from Wuxia, he was attacked by a large number of overlords from the dark world. Fortunately, Su Zhenlei, Su Ruoqing, Qing Yi, and the others were fully prepared. With Hu Qingtian's support, they were able to catch the enemy off guard. Jiang Zhixing was not hurt at all after killing 8 Dark World Council overlords. As for the Dark Council, they also took the most forceful action at the first moment. In Wuxia, many overlords from the Dark World retreated and focused on attacking the Immerse Sword sect. They killed 3 Immortal State overlords in a row, broke the mountain gate, destroyed the mountain protection array, and retreated with many heavenly materials and earthly treasures. When the news spread, the world was in an uproar. How is this possible? Yeah, that's the Immerse Sword sect. The top sword cultivator of Mount Shu. Many people could not believe it. Even for many overlords from the Dark World, semi-hidden sects like the Mount Shu Sword sect and the ancient Wudong sect were still powerful existences that could not be blasphemed. These semi-hidden sects had a long history of thousands of years. They had a deep foundation. Their cultivation techniques and divine weapons were as vast as the sea, and their overlords were as numerous as trees in the forest. The members of these sects lived in seclusion deep in the mountains. They did not care about worldly affairs and were engrossed in cultivation. They were like gods in the sky, drinking the wind and drinking the dew. They were high and mighty, and their martial arts and spiritual spells could penetrate the heavens and the earth. It could be said that compared to the Immerse Sword sect, the Cherry Blossom Society, and the Winter Soldier sect, it was like a 3-year-old child meeting the boxing champion Mike Tyson. They were not on the same level at all. It's the Zhenyu Demon King. He killed a half-step human Immortal Vice sect leader and 3 Immortal State elders with a flick of his finger. The others are impressed. A warrior from Wuxia spread the news. Hiss. The Zhenyu Demon King is so terrifying. Half-step human immortals and 3 Immortal State elders with a flick of his finger. I don't think even Kong Teichu has such a powerful record. Hearing this, everyone gasped and felt that their scalps were about to explode. The Zhenyu Demon King and the Gathering of Darkness are really too powerful. You have to know that the Immerse Sword sect is the second most hidden sect in Wuxia, second only to Kunlun. Some overlords trembled. This time Sidoni and Tianqing School are really in danger. Some martial artists from Wuxia sighed bitterly. Why hasn't Kong Teichu come back yet? Come back quickly. Only he can save the martial arts world in Wuxia. Jiang Tian's loyal fans Big Saber Bro and the others were very anxious. They gritted their teeth and suppressed a surge of anger. Nie Mingyuan was too vicious and merciless. He had only been in Wuxia for 3 days, and he had killed more than a dozen grandmasters. Blood flowed like a river. In the end, he led the Gathering of Darkness and brazenly defeated the 2 semi-hidden sects, Dianzong and Immerse. This was completely different from Jiang Tian. Although Jiang Tian had also killed many people, he never took the initiative to kill. There was always a reason for his actions. According to the principles of Jianghu, he killed people who deserved to be killed. But Nie Mingyuan was different. He only adhered to one principle, which was that a gentleman's wealth was his own ruin. As long as there was something he needed, he would kill and seize it regardless of the consequences. Sometimes he would even kill for no reason, not for treasure or revenge. It seemed that he was just venting his monstrous anger as if he wanted to destroy the world. Previously, many martial artists from Wuxia felt that Zhang Tian was ferocious and would kill people at the slightest provocation. He was definitely not a good person. Therefore, they did not join Sidoni to avoid a disaster. But compared with Nie Mingyuan and the powerhouses of the Gathering of Darkness, Zhang Tian was really too kind and gentle. But now they realized that Sidoni seemed to be the safest place. How could they reason with a peerless demon like Nie Mingyuan? Being weak was the original sin of being killed. Later, Nie Mingyuan went to Southeast Asia, America, Africa, the Middle East and other areas to gather more forces. It was said that the number of powerhouses from the Dark World who had submitted to him had reached more than 2,000, including many immortal state powerhouses. What was especially infuriating was Nie Mingyuan wantonly killed in Wuxia, killing people and making rivers of blood. But in these areas he did not kill a single powerhouse, nor did he force them. He only bewitched them with evil words or promised them great benefits. When the news reached Yi Zhantian's ears, he sighed. Nie Mingyuan has an extreme hatred for the country and his people. His mentality has been seriously twisted. A few days later, in the central hall of Tianqing School, many overlords were gathered. Zhou Xian sat on the stage and held a pre-war meeting. Madam, many tycoons in Sidoni have put pressure on the European Union. The European Union Joint Conference has decided not to send troops after a democratic vote. A local war is basically impossible. Qin Yang reported. Many politicians and tycoons from around the world had settled in the healing Immortal village, including many influential tycoons and nobles in Europe. These people had been deeply impressed by the charm of the healing Immortal village and were even fighting to get permanent residency. And the last thing they wanted was to see a war between the European Union and Sidoni, and the last thing they wanted was to see the Tianqing School and Sidoni get into trouble. When the President of the European Union started to support the Gathering of Darkness, many European tycoons and even members of the royal family joined forces and formed a powerful force to impeach Jung and dissolve the European Union. The entire European Union Joint Conference was almost overturned. Jung and many other European Union leaders were muddle-headed. In the end, they could only vote to terminate the cooperation with the Gathering of Darkness. So far, only a few European families secretly supported the Gathering of Darkness and gave them a large amount of money, ships and modern helicopters. And the European Union Coalition Army had ceased all activities. It was similar to the Marshall family's action against Zhang Tian in the United States. This is what it means to subdue an enemy without a fight. Master's move can save the lives of billions of entities. At this moment, Qinyang, Huqing Tian and the others finally understood why Zhang Tian wanted to build a country instead of simply establishing a sect. Zhang Tian's schemes were far-sighted and could even be said to be flawless. He had seen a war a long time ago and had been fully prepared for it. The world wasn't as simple as one or the other. It was you and me and you and me. By building a country, Zhang Tian was demonstrating a kind of cultivation civilization. This kind of civilization was destructive and could destroy cities and countries. But it was also constructive and advanced. The healing Immortal village helped people with diseases and many medicines could extend people's lives. Well, very well. So far, only the Gathering of Darkness can fight with us. Hearing this, Zhou Xian was relieved and smiled sarcastically. Maybe the Blue Storm of the United States will join us. If they really dare to come, the Tianqing sect will definitely make it so that they won't be able to return. That's right. We have many Immortal state warriors and a half-step human deity. We are not afraid of the Gathering of Darkness. Huqing Tian nodded in agreement. If we can't defeat them, we will retreat into the Zhou Tianyong formation. I don't believe that Nie Mingyuan can suppress the Tianqing school. While all sects in Tianjun on standby, prepare for the first level of battle. Zhou Xian said. Yes. Below the stage, all the disciples were filled with murderous intent and were in high spirits. Chapter 776. It's a pity that the Kuelian system is not stable yet. Otherwise, when I stabilize the system, I'll smash it into pieces with my Kuelian. After the meeting, Zhang Qinzhen clenched his fists and said angrily. His eyes were red because of continuous debugging and experiments. 10 days later, Nie Mingyuan, the president of the Dark Parliament, asked his subordinates to send a letter of challenge to Tianqing School. He claimed that the purpose of the Dark Parliament was to reduce disputes and maintain world peace. He didn't want to see civilians in Sidoni die. He hoped that neither the Taiqing sect nor the Dark Parliament would use force from the secular world. He hoped that they would have a final showdown in North Bay of Sidoni to decide the ownership of Tianqing School's Daoist field. If the Dark Parliament won, Tianqing School would give up the Daoist field and all the assets in Sidoni. If they lost the final showdown, the Dark Parliament would be dissolved immediately and Tianqing School and Ms. Zhao Xueqing could do whatever they wanted with them. At the same time, the letter of challenge was published on the deep web and other major forums of the world. Ba Nie Mingyuan is shameless. After reading the letter of challenge, Hu Qingtian cursed loudly. His hands are stained with the blood of the weak. He claims to maintain world peace and doesn't want to see civilians die. He has lost the support of the European Union and can't mobilize the power of the European Union coalition. Let's not be polite to him, Qin Yang said fiercely. When they come, we'll shoot them with rocket launchers. They won't even be able to find their teeth. No, agree with them. Zhao Xueqing pondered for a moment, then shook her head and said calmly, what he means is that if we use modern troops and weapons, they will also attack civilians in Sidoni. If we refuse them, we will not only give them a reason to attack us, but also lose the support of the people in Sidoni. In 3 days, Tianqing School and the Dark Parliament will fight to the death in North Bay of Sidoni. When the news came out, the world was in an uproar again. The emotions of many experts were quickly stirred. Tianqing School and the Covenant of Darkness, the two most powerful forces in the world, are going to war. How many years has it been since something like this happened? This could be said to be the most brilliant and magnificent battle in the past 500 years. People were so excited that their hands trembled and they jumped up and down. This is truly the rise of the cultivators, the era of great competition, the era of great competition. Some people raised their hands and shouted towards the sky. I must go and take a look. Don't miss it. To be able to witness the most glorious battle in the past 500 years, I have not lived in vain. Many powerful figures from the dark world rushed out from all over the world and rushed towards Sidoni. Only a dozen days had passed in the outside world, but a dozen years had passed in the Sword Tomb. These days he could clearly feel that the magic power of the array formation was gradually weakening. Although the restriction at the entrance of the valley could stop ordinary people, it could no longer stop him and the Wolf King. Sometimes they would go out on patrol to get some fresh air. On this day, Situ Xiao was practicing his swordsmanship in the snow outside the entrance of the sword mound. Whoosh! A treasured sword was driven by him and drew a bright streamer in the air, surpassing 3 times the speed of sound. Clang! This ordinary treasured sword directly penetrated an ice mountain that was more than a few hundred meters tall. It was 10 times more powerful than the green Suo sword. So that's how it is. The real flying sword is completely different from the sword manipulation technique that I have practiced before. Situ Xiao laughed heartily. At this time he had already practiced the 5 elements heaven-seizing sword to 70 to 80%, and he had a lot of understanding in his heart. In the final analysis, the sword manipulation technique in the world was all about using qi to manipulate the sword. At a higher level, the qi would be very thin, so thin that it would be difficult to perceive it with the naked eye and spiritual power. At the extreme level, one could also inject a large amount of one's own qi into the treasured sword. This qi could sense the circulation of one's own qi, and the attacks formed by the treasured sword were between spiritual power and qi. The real sword manipulation technique, on the other hand, used the divine sense that surpassed spiritual power to manipulate the sword. It turned out that every time Situ Xiao used the green Suo sword, even with the help of the sword spirit, he was so tired that he would hum and hum. A large amount of genuine qi was consumed and he almost vomited blood. But now, an ordinary treasured sword was not only much more powerful, but also did not consume the slightest bit of qi and spiritual power. It was like a second clone, and it was extremely mysterious. The most important thing was that its lethality and speed were far beyond any sword manipulation technique in the world. Haha, it doesn't consume qi and spiritual power. Luckily, Master Kong spared my life back then. Otherwise, I would have been exhausted to death. The more Situ Xiao thought about it, the more he felt that Jiang Tian's strength was beyond his imagination. Yeah, this 5 elements heaven-seizing sword is already so powerful. I wonder how vast and magnificent the technique that Master cultivates is. That's right. According to the sword manipulation technique that Jiang Tian had taught him, the moon-worshipping Wolf King was gathering the power of the aurora. At this moment he couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Suddenly, the two of them felt a surge of energy erupting from the sword catacomb. It rushed to the 9th heaven and stirred up the aurora in the sky, making it uneasy and restless. A breakthrough. The moon-worshipping Wolf King was so shocked by this horrifying energy that he jumped up. Green Ant. A soft shout came from the continuous palace in the depths of the sword catacomb, and it was clearly transmitted. Green Ant seems to be a flying sword of the Immortal of 9 Swords. Thinking of the Immortal of 9 Swords' holographic projection, that day, Situ Xiao couldn't help but scratch his head and murmur to himself with a strange expression, but we searched the entire sword catacomb and couldn't find it. At that time, the remnant soul of the Immortal of 9 Swords said that he had forged a total of 10 flying swords. Green Ant, Spring Thunder, Moon Soul, Luopu, Golden Crow, Demon Slayer, Imperial Wind, Falling Star, Dragon Scale and Black Snake. Except for the worst Black Snake sword which had hit the head of the sacred battling ape Qi Aoxing and was taken away by him during the battle, the other 9 were hidden in the sword catacomb. Each of them had killed many seniors and had an earth-shattering power. They had killed countless monsters and could crush earth-level deities. But he had also made it clear. These 9 flying swords were real spirit artifacts. Those who didn't have good eyesight wouldn't be able to discover them. Only those who had reached the 3rd level of the foundation establishment level and above could use them. But then, crack, there was a soft sound. A giant crack suddenly appeared on the lowest peak of the 9 mountains around the sword catacomb and it started to shake violently. Oh my god, is this an earthquake? This isn't an earthquake zone. The moon-worshipping Wolf King exclaimed. Let's go inside. Master Kong is in seclusion. How can he withstand this kind of disturbance? Situ Xiao panicked and flew inside on his flying sword. Jiang Tian was very powerful, but when a person was cultivating in seclusion, they would be completely unguarded. Even a finger would be able to poke them to death, let alone such a great earthquake. Don't worry. I'm fine. I'm taking these flying swords. Jiang Tian's indifferent voice was heard. What? The two of them stopped dead in their tracks. Then they saw a shocking scene that they would never forget in their entire lives. The snow and ice on the mountain gradually fell off, revealing a jade-like green. Then the entire 200-meter-high mountain shot into the sky like a missile launch. No, it should be said that it was like a carrier rocket launch. It rumbled and shot into the sky with earth-shattering noises. Oh my god! Is that a sword? The moon-worshipping Wolf King looked up and yelled. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets. This scene was simply too shocking. In front of such a huge sword that was over 100 meters long, he felt like an ant or a speck of dust. He was too small and not worth mentioning. Spring Thunder. Another low voice was heard, as if a divine emperor was giving orders to all living beings, as if a Buddha was giving a short speech. A 50-meter-tall mountain shot out a huge lightning bolt that was as thick as a human thigh. It was like thousands of lightning dragons circling around it, piercing into the sky. The two swords shot thousands of meters into the sky until they disappeared. They might even leave the atmosphere and reach outer space. Moon Soul. As the Moon Soul Sword Mountain rose into the sky, the aurora in a 20-kilometer radius above the sword catacomb was absorbed and the stars dimmed. Desolation. As the sword rose, an enormous spiritual pressure came crashing down like an avalanche, and it had the power to destroy everything in its path. Situ Zhao's face turned as pale as a sheet of paper. He stumbled backward and felt that his head was about to explode. The moon-worshipping Wolf King found a cave and hid in it. He hugged his head and howled. A Foundation establishment level overlord would have his divine soul and divine sense destroyed when he saw the sword will. In the end, Jiang Tian yelled. The earth shook and snow danced in the air. The peerless swords that had been dormant for hundreds of years flew up into the sky like angry dragons waking up. If this sword hit someone, I'm afraid it would kill. Situ Xiao was speechless. What kind of person could withstand it? Turning into ashes, vaporizing, disappearing from this world in an instant? It was unimaginable. The 9 swords were like 9 dragons that flew up into the sky. It was enough to shock the world. Outside the atmosphere, under the cold starry sky, in a milky white space station with the word NASA painted on it. My God, why is there a sword? An astronaut who was drinking coffee and listening to rock music suddenly jumped up from his chair in shock and pointed outside the window and exclaimed, "What sword? You mean that kind of cold weapon?" Next to him, another astronaut crossed his legs and sneered. Although the conditions of the space station were good, there were few entertainment programs and very little contact with the ground. In such an environment, people would often develop claustrophobia, and hallucinations were also possible. In fact, this job was similar to being in prison. Therefore, he didn't believe his colleagues' nonsense and thought that he was hallucinating. After all, it was too illogical. "What are you laughing at? I really saw a sword. It was a cold weapon, but it was super big, dozens of meters long." The astronaut who witnessed it stretched out his arms exaggeratedly and was so angry that he almost dropped his coffee cup. Chapter 777. Those experiments, observation of the Earth and daily maintenance were really boring. It was not easy to make an earth-shattering discovery, but they did not believe it. "Right, don't we have a video? Let's take a look at the video." The witness suddenly had an idea and turned on the video system to check. However, he didn't see a treasured sword. Instead, he saw a hazy gray shadow. "What kind of cosmic ray is that? It's so big." The other astronauts were amazed and could not figure it out. As for Zhou Xian, he had already controlled the flying swords to fly back and shrink them to their normal size. Together with Little Hay, which was originally called the Black Serpent Sword, there were a total of 10 flying swords floating quietly in front of Zhou Xian. At this time, he had used his divine sense to erase the original divine sense imprint of the Immortal of 9 swords and left his own. Suddenly, he had a feeling that he was connected to these flying swords by blood, and he could control them as if they were his arms. There are too few cultivation resources on Earth. With 10 flying swords that can travel thousands of kilometers, I think there are not many people who can challenge me. Zhou Xian thought for a while and patted the sky-devouring magic gourd, sending all the flying swords into it. In the end, the time acceleration formation had completely exhausted all of its magic power and collapsed. Then Zhou Xian looked into his qi and could not help but be happy. "But I was lucky. Before the formation collapsed, I just condensed my dantian and succeeded in foundation establishment." He was surprised to find that the boiling true essence in his qi had undergone obvious changes. The red flame fortune elixirs refined by Zhou Xian, especially the foundation establishment elixir, actually contained a lot of fire-type medicinal power and energy. After swallowing, Zhou Xian's true essence and qi were like burning fire, roasting and condensing. Zhou Xian still had a lingering fear from the previous severe pain. It was as if an ordinary person had thrown a fiery fire into his body, which was very torturous. Even though Zhou Xian had been cultivating for thousands of years and had experienced several breakthroughs and disasters, it was still difficult for him to bear. But as the medicinal power roasted, the boiling true yuan and qi in his lower abdomen gradually condensed. The true yuan first became like liquid gold, then a mixture of solid and liquid. In the end, it forcibly formed a large block. Like a piece of golden soil, it merged with his qi and continued to rise until it stabilized at his chest. At this time, his qi was filled with powerful true essence particles and blocks. The golden light was brilliant, and it looked like a fertile field. This was the dantian of the Jin Dan. This was not the dantian acupoint in traditional Chinese medicine, but the field that nurtured the Jin Dan and the foundation for the next step. This was also the foundation to truly embark on the path of cultivation. It was as if a solid foundation had been laid for a skyscraper. From now on, Zhou Xian was a true cultivator. Therefore, the condensation of a dantian within the body was also known as successful foundation establishment. Whoosh! Zhou Xian exhaled slowly. His expression turned calm as he slightly operated his dantian. Immediately rumble. The feeling of his magical power skyrocketing and his supernatural powers being activated made him so comfortable that he almost cried out. At this time, Zhou Xian was immersed in a subtle and comfortable feeling. He could not help but operate the technique over and over again. After a few cycles, his spirit gradually wandered off. At this time, the mountain and peaks formed by the 9 flying swords had disappeared from the ground. Therefore, Zhou Xian and the Wolf King could clearly see a spirit that was identical to Zhang Tian leaping out of the golden lake between Zhang Tian's eyebrows. This divine soul emitted a dazzling golden light from the inside to the outside, like the Vajra-colored glaze or the golden body of a Buddha. This spirit was very fast. Step by step it ascended into the sky. Conjuring a spell, it raised its hand and condensed a vast expanse of heaven and earth yuan qi into a long sword. Break! The divine soul let out a low growl and shot out a sword, shattering an ice mountain that was dozens of meters tall. This is Master Kang's spirit. It's actually so powerful. The Wolf King was dumbfounded and couldn't believe it. He who had reached the top of the immortal state knew too much about divine souls and had seen many of them. For example, the origin of the Divine Sword Palace of Dongyang had formed a divine soul during the battle with Jiang Tian and wanted to escape. However, as long as it was a soul, it was just a weak spiritual force that would collapse at the slightest sign of disturbance. And it could only appear at night. Once it met the sun, it would be instantly annihilated and completely disappear. In particular, ordinary divine souls couldn't form physical attacks, let alone produce Dharma power. But it was already May and June. The polar night phenomenon in the Arctic had ended and the sun was shining brightly. But Jiang Tian's divine soul was like another him and was not afraid of the sunlight at all. What was more terrifying was that Jiang Tian's divine soul could perform divine powers and form physical attacks. If he hadn't seen the divine soul come out of Jiang Tian's mind with his own eyes, he would have thought that this divine soul avatar was Jiang Tian himself. This is the sun god, also known as the primordial spirit. Zhou Xian exclaimed in shock. According to the records of Taoism, the primordial spirit is independent and independent. It is called the primordial spirit. It is said that only sky immortals and perfected immortals can cultivate it. This kind of divine soul has self-consciousness and is not afraid of the sunlight. Can travel 100 miles in a day just like a second avatar. Can also be reborn and form a body. Even if the body is destroyed, it won't be afraid at all. So powerful. The Moon Wolf King's eyes almost popped out. He felt that his vision had been broadened. You are quite knowledgeable. That young god avatar floated in front of Zhou Xian and Zhou Xian. Even though the two of them knew that it was Jiang Tian's young soul avatar, they quickly kowtowed. Jiang Tian's young soul gestured for the two of them to get up and smiled. The young soul, also known as the primordial spirit, is an avatar outside the body. The avatar of the pure young body has a shape. The divine soul you are talking about is actually the Yin soul. It is formed by willpower or strong thoughts. It is a ghost with a shadow but no shape. Sometimes when you sit in meditation you will feel like you are going out to play. You can see things outside but you can't take them back. This is the Yin soul traveling. When a mortal dies, his soul will dissipate without a place to stay. If there is resentment in his life, his soul will still exist for a certain period of time. There may be signs of the Yin soul appearing. At this time, Jiang Tian's original body was still breathing and circulating his spiritual energy. However, Jiang Tian's young soul avatar was still operating smoothly. His every movement was graceful and he spoke with assurance just like a real person. It's amazing. When I read the records I thought it was just a Taoist fantasy. Turns out that it is all true. Seeing this, Zhou Xian couldn't help but be shocked and respectful. We should go. Move the rest of the things in the sword tomb. The young soul avatar said calmly. Yes. Zhou Xian and Wolf King hurriedly bowed and agreed. The young soul avatar rose into the air again. In the ruins of the sword tomb he gathered many spiritual herbs and great medicines with the other two and placed them in front of Jiang Tian's original body. After busying himself for half an hour he flew into Jiang Tian's mind. At this time Jiang Tian's eyes flashed. He stood up and said slowly, "We have been in the sword tomb for 4 or 5 months. I'm afraid that the Genyu Demon King, Blue Storm and other opponents can't sit still anymore. I have to hurry to Sidoni." With that he didn't use the flying sword. His body swayed and suddenly disappeared. The next moment he had already crossed the entire Sword Tomb Island and appeared more than 100 kilometers away. 3 days passed in a flash. Soon the time for the final battle between the Covenant of Darkness and the Tianqing school arrived. This time the deputy chairman of the Covenant of Darkness, Blood Ancestor Ali, took a fleet led by a cruiser called the Expedition. He led many Blood Ancestors, the Wolf King of the Grassland, Garl, and many Immortal State warriors from the Dark World from England. They crossed the North Atlantic Ocean and headed toward the North Bay of Sidoni. On the shore of the North Bay, on a mountain called the Tide-Watching Mountain, the 4 spiritual generals of the Wuxia Long formation gathered and waited for the battle. When the Covenant of Darkness was wreaking havoc in Wuxia, it was the overlords of the Tianqing school who helped. Now they were returning the favor. On another mountain peak, Master Hongba of the Chinese Society of Singapore, Tan Jun, Li Jinju, and Song Jigang of the Fucking Gang were also there. Although they had not reached the immortal state and couldn't participate in this kind of battle, they were seriously concerned and needed to show their attitude. In addition, there were at least 1,000 overlords watching the battle on the mountain. Most of them were above the transcendent state and were comparable to grandmasters. There were kendo grandmasters in Japan, mixed martial arts masters in North America, pagan gods in the jungles of Africa, and so on. They claimed that they were there to watch the battle and wouldn't help either side. In fact, many of them were planning to take advantage of the situation. The real backbone of the Tianqing school was 3 kilometers away from the territorial waters, on a fleet led by the Taichu aircraft carrier. Zhao Xueqing, Huang Linger, Huqing Tian, Wei Feilong, Zhao Yuankuan, Sasaki Haisha, and the other experts were wearing heavenly armor. They stood proudly on the deck, their eyes cold and filled with fighting spirit. As the fleet of the Covenant of Darkness approached, Red Sparrow put down the telescope and shouted with a serious face. So many overlords are here. This time the Tianqing school will not be able to withstand it. Each of the Blood Ancestors was beyond the immortal state, and many of them were mortal deities and saints. They had lived for a long time and had experienced many mysterious things. Their cultivation was unfathomable, and some of them had even reached the level of Holy Master or Earth-level deity. The blood ancestor that Tang Linglong had killed was the weakest among them. At that time she used the god spirit bone finger dagger and caught him off guard. That was why she managed to hit him. Otherwise she wouldn't have been able to fight with the blood ancestor. Don't worry. Our Lady has learned from Master Kong. She is much more powerful than these blood-drinking monsters. Xianxia was calm. The next moment, a serious look appeared on his face. The real threat is Nie Mingyuan. I don't think he is here this time. Suddenly there was a commotion. A civilian cruise ship was sailing from the south. A beam of golden light shot out from the cruise ship, pierced through the sky and landed on HMS Expedition. The man was old and skinny. He was wearing a yellow monk robe and had a shiny bald head. His yellow eyebrows almost reached his shoulders. Tilad, the king of Tame Tao in Thailand. Back then he was far stronger than Wang Chongyan and was on par with the Indian great master Ji Wu. Black Tortoise recognized this person and cried out involuntarily as if it had seen an evil ghost. Chapter 778. Yes, it is him. Xianxia's face darkened. This man used to wrestle with Wang Chongyan for control of the Chinese Society of Singapore. He had already reached the immortal state, maybe even the half-step human immortal. It was only because they were suppressed by the Singapore army that they retreated to Thailand and sealed themselves off from the world. Dragonhead, it seems that the gathering of darkness is not only limited to Europe. Many other hidden forces have joined in as well. Red Sparrow snorted. I am afraid that he still wants to take over the Chinese Society of Singapore. However, he wouldn't dare to show his face when Master Kong is around. Soon more light shone. Beams of light pierced through the void and shot from all directions, landing on the expedition one after another. Some of them came in helicopters and jumped down from the sky. Some rode on huge whales, pushing away the rolling waves. There were even some who were riding on huge birds with huge wings as if they were ancient gods. High Priest of the Golden Temple in Mexico. Apostle, King of the Caucasian Shamans in Russia. The top alchemist in New Zealand, Coppersmith. Grand Priest of the Green Leaf Sect in the Middle East. The top physique awakened in South America, the Butcher. The current leader of the Hong sect, half-step immortal state overlord, Situ Lei. Every single one of these people had surging auras, monstrous ferocity and ghastly bearings. Their cultivations had already attained the god rank realm. Everyone was dumbfounded. They had thought that the immortal state warriors were no longer around since the spirit chi on earth had withered. They had never thought that dozens of immortal state warriors would show up in such a short time. Boom. Suddenly, a bloody aura that was 1,000 meters long appeared at the intersection of the sea and the sky in the north. The blood ancestors are here. One of the experts cried out in surprise. Many people rose to their feet and looked toward the north. Many immortal state overlords were intimidated by the sight. They saw a yellow-brown ship appear in the sky. It seemed to be moving slowly, but it was actually moving very fast. They took a closer look and found that the ship was made out of human skin. The ship was over 100 meters long and was supported by human bones. The sails were made out of human hair, painted with human blood, decorated with human skulls, and used hundreds of human hands as oars. While flying, the strings of heads hanging from the sides of the ship fluttered like flags. Dense blood energy gushed out and hummed as if there were thousands of vengeful spirits howling and howling. It was enough to make one's hair stand on end. The blood demon ship. I've seen it in a Hebrew religious text. Back in the pre-Christian era, the blood tribe mighty figures used these ships to conquer the world. They could fly for thousands of kilometers without falling. Because he had killed too many people, he was called the ancestor of the wicked, and thus received this title. His real name was forgotten. However, the blood ancestor, Cain, was the most powerful and oldest blood breed. Many blood ancestors were his disciples and disciples. Legend had it that he was as powerful as an earth immortal or even a divine immortal. In history, he had once killed a pope. Even if he had used a sinister and vicious method, he had still killed a pope. And that pope was a genuine divine immortal, and his strength was comparable to that of a divine immortal in Wuxia. The old man is a pacifist among the blood breeds. He has always advocated for the peaceful coexistence of humans and blood breeds. I have never drunk human blood. I only drink blood bags. The blood ancestor, Cain, straightened his back slightly, and spoke in a thunderous voice that shook the sea and scattered the clouds in the sky. However, although Kong Teichu is a human, he has repeatedly stirred up international disputes, killed tens of thousands of people in France, and destroyed half of the city of Paris. His eyes were like divine lamps, sweeping across the crowd with majesty. He roared like a lion. Today, on behalf of the gathering of darkness, I am here to settle the score with you. You should abandon the darkness and join the light. Disband the Tianqing school, kneel down, surrender, and await our verdict. Humph. The New World ships in France have polluted the Gulf of Tonkin and killed civilians. We are only protecting Sidoni's territory and sovereignty. What crime have we committed? Sasaki Haisha, who was wearing the heavenly golden armor and carrying a long sword on his back, took a step forward and scolded. Who doesn't know that Kong Teichu has destroyed the Gua family in Singapore? The king of Gong Tao of Thailand sneered and said, I have come out of seclusion to uphold justice. Situ Lei, the leader of the Hong sect, also shouted, Jiang Taichu once killed my uncle Situ Yuanhao and my father Situ Jie in Great Turtle Island. This president will not rest until he is dead. Tell him to come out, I want to fight him. He knew that Jiang Tian was trapped in the sword catacomb, so he had to shout. After all, Jiang Tian couldn't come out to kill him. My golden temple. One by one, the deity realm experts stood out and rebuked Jiang Tian. It was as if they all had great enmity with him. For example, the butcher, the first physique awakening immortal state physique refinement cultivator in South America, had nothing to do with Jiang Tian. However, one of the overlords who created the Blue Storm was his son. The butcher had been killed by Jiang Tian at the Battle of Cass Lake, and he wanted to avenge himself. Enough talk. If you have a mind to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext. Hua Qingtian pointed the god-slaying spear at the crowd and roared like a thunderclap. If you want to take Sidoni's training ground, come at me. Today I will make sure that none of you return. He initiated a cultivation art and suddenly, a surge of energy shot up to the sky. The heavenly armor on his body glowed with golden light. He had been an immortal state warrior for a few months. With the help of the immortal state cultivation art that Jiang Tian had given him, he had reached the mid-stage of qi refinement. He was as powerful as a peak-stage immortal state warrior or even a half-step away from mortal deity. Many experts were shocked when they saw the aura that seemed like it could burn the heavens. If you want to fight, then let's fight. Cut the crap. Wei Feilong, Zhao Yunkuan, Tang Linglong, Sasaki Haisha, and the other experts all stepped forward, their killing intent soaring to the sky. Let's fight. Even Huang Linger's face was flushed red. With a shout, green vines shot out from her fingertips like coiling green snakes. Sinful humans, your blood should be used to wash away your sins. Blood Ancestor Ali took a step forward and approached the Heavenly Clear sect members with a strangely shaped bone saber in hand. On the cruiser behind him, dozens of Blood Ancestor Grand Cultivators waved their capes and rose to the sky. Most of them were dukes, earls, and some were even lords. They charged towards the Taichu aircraft carrier. A few ordinary humans as weak as ants, how strong can you be? Jiang Taichu has already fallen, I can kill you like I'm killing chickens. Another Blood Ancestor, Blood Drinker Jim, stepped on a crimson cloud and flew into the sky. Then Undead Messenger Damon, Blood Knight, Black Blood Ancestor Jack, Godwing Blood Ancestor, and the other 5 Blood Ancestors also rushed forward. They had all surpassed the immortal state and were comparable to mortal deities and saints. They were even Earth-level deities. When they attacked together, their blood chi was extremely terrifying. Go to hell. Huaqing Tian stepped on the air and shot 100 meters into the sky. The god-killing spear was aimed at Ali. It was said that the one-day imprisonment array that trapped Jiang Tian was created by Ali. Huaqing Tian hated him to the core and had been keeping an eye on him. Whoosh. This god-slaying spear was strengthened by Jiang Tian. Its power was deep and its speed was extremely fast. Blood Ancestor Ali couldn't dodge it. There was a big hole in his shoulder and blood was stained. Damn it. How can it hurt me? Ali was furious. He had never thought that Kong Teichu's disciple would be so powerful. Disposable flying swords, let's go. On the deck of the Taichu aircraft carrier, Tang Linglong shouted. She made a hand gesture and stomped on the ground. Suddenly, one first-generation disposable flying sword after another tore through the air and shot toward the Blood Tribe experts at lightning speed. Rumble. The thunder talismans on the 13 disposable flying swords exploded and a sea of lightning covered the sky. Lightning as thick as an arm intertwined and enveloped a dozen blood race overlords. They had already turned into crystals and contained monstrous power. A single one of them could crush a half-god expert. Before the thousands of arrows had even moved, the violent pressure had already arrived. Even the absolute beginning, which was as big as a piece of land, trembled. Around the aircraft carrier, huge waves that were more than 10 meters tall rose into the sky. Huaqing Tian abruptly took a step back, his face pale. Tang Linglong's knees gave out and she almost knelt down. How can the disciples of Kong Teichu kneel before a vampire bat like you? She yelled and stood up with her feet. Crack. A shallow dent appeared on the deck made of special steel under her feet. This is the power of the blood race. He's comparable to a sacred master or a sky immortal. He can destroy an immortal state warrior. This is the most brilliant attack in 500 years. Countless people were terrified and their hair stood on end. Since the rise of Kong Teichu, the era of great battles had arrived. There had been more overlords fighting in recent years than in the previous few hundred years. This was also the first time in 500 years that sacred masters and sky immortals had fought in public. Cain might have only reached the level of a sacred king, but he was definitely comparable to a sacred master. Unable to withstand the pressure, Tang Linglong immediately took out a mottled turtle shell the size of a palm. The Xian turtle shield was an inferior-grade quasi-spirit artifact passed down from Emperor Zhenwu. It was 10 times more powerful than the mountain turtle shield. It grew in size and turned into a giant Xian turtle shadow. The Xian turtle shadow was dozens of meters wide. It shot up into the sky and tried to stop the thousands of blood arrows. But suddenly, boom, boom, the turtle shell cracked open. Many blood arrows rained down from the sky and were only a few dozen meters away. Break. Tang Linglong spat out a mouthful of blood. She turned her wrist and took out the divine spirit finger bone dagger. Swish. A sharp golden light about 300 meters long swept across the sky, spanning hundreds of meters. Crack. Only a dozen or so arrows were shattered, which was only a drop in the ocean. The remaining thousands of arrows continued to fall like rain. I'm afraid that the Tianqing school will lose half of its members. Next we will invade their dojo and take over their country. Situ Lei, the sect master of the Hong sect, guffawed. Tens of thousands of disciples of the Hong sect were already on the Pacific Ocean, ready for the battle. Even as the blood crystal arrows were about to pierce through the overlords of the Tianqing school. Suddenly, a slightly cold but soft and pleasant voice spread throughout the entire area. Lord Blood Ancestor, you are almost 1,000 years old. How can you bully a few kids? It was Zhou Xian. She raised her head slightly, and 2 golden dots that were as sharp as needles appeared in her clear and beautiful eyes. Then they turned into 2 golden flowers that suddenly bloomed. Finally, all of a sudden, there was a crash. 2 crimson flames shot out from the pair of limpid eyes and shot 1,000 meters away, enveloping all the blood crystal arrows. Bang! 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 The blood crystal arrows were frozen in the air for a moment before exploding one after another. Cain's towering mountain-like body suddenly trembled, and a trace of shock finally appeared on his unchanging face. He stared at Zhou Xian in disbelief and said, "What? Are you a sky immortal as well?" "I don't know if she is a sky immortal, but she is at least an earth-level deity." Realizing what this scene meant, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Many people were shocked to the point of being dumbfounded. After Jiang Tian defeated the ancient Wudong sect, many people guessed that he was an earth-level deity. But now there was another earth-level deity. This was completely out of everyone's expectation. No one had expected that the Tianqing school had such a powerful trump card. Even Yi Zhantian and the people of the Long Formation were stunned. Zhou Xian's progress was so fast that it was unbelievable. Master Kong is so domineering. He can mass-produce overlords. Black Tortoise clicked his tongue. No wonder she is Kong Teichu's wife. A supreme beauty unparalleled in the world. Seeing this, deep admiration appeared on Hera's face. Her aura is too strong. She is the same kind of person as Kong Teichu. Even the Blood Lord Cain did not have the confidence to fight with Zhou Xian. His face became very serious. "Humph, a bunch of clowns. How dare you make trouble in Sidoni? Is this all you have?" Tang Linglong's breathing was smooth. She immediately shouted sarcastically, "I advise you to kneel down and admit defeat. Also, don't you have the Genyu Demon King? Why is he nowhere to be seen? Don't tell me he is too scared to come out because of my mistress?" Many overlords had doubts in their minds. It was said that the Genyu Demon King was very powerful. Why didn't he show up this time? At this time the Blood Lord Cain sneered and said, "Little girl, how dare you disrespect the Genyu Demon King? You really don't know what's good for you. Oh well, now that the hell-suppressing Demon King is here, let's see if you can still laugh." After saying that, he knelt on the human skin boat with one hand on his chest and made a medieval bow. With a face full of piety, he looked up to the sky and shouted, "We respectfully invite the Genyu Demon King to come into being. We respectfully invite the hell-suppressing Demon Lord to come into being. The Blood Clan, the Grassland Wolf Clan, the Gong Tao King and many other Dark Clan experts from all over the world." A few hundred cultivators knelt on the ground and yelled with respectful expressions. Boom! Suddenly, a cloud of black demon chi appeared on the surface of the sea. It was as thick as ink and was rolling unsteadily. It spanned 2,000 meters and covered the sky like a dark cloud. The world suddenly turned dark. In the next moment, a tall, handsome and devilishly charming young man suddenly condensed and appeared. He wore a high hat and a wide belt. His sleeves fluttered in the wind, making him look like a deity. His every movement seemed to be in harmony with the heavens and the earth, as if he could drive the power of the heavens and the earth. His feet didn't even touch the surface of the sea as he floated in the air. "It's really Nye Mingyuan." In the crowd, Su Ruoqing exclaimed as if she had seen an evil spirit in broad daylight. Back then they and the tyrants of Lingnan burned down the Nye family's mansion and blood flowed like a river. Nye Mingyuan also fell into the sea of fire. They didn't expect that he was not only alive but also extremely powerful. "Go to hell." Nye Mingyuan looked at Su Ruoqing and his indifferent eyes suddenly became as cold as a knife. Plang! A vast and mighty immortal will burst out from Zhao Xueqing and immediately enveloped Su Ruoqing. Boom! Zhao Xueqing's immortal will collapsed. Her body suddenly shook and blood oozed out from the corner of her mouth. Crack! The protective jade talisman that Jiang Tian gave her on her waist broke and Su Ruoqing fell to the ground, vomiting blood and died. This scene shocked everyone. Everyone at the Tianqing school also turned pale and their eyes became serious. Nie Mingyuan only said a word and crushed Zhao Xueqing's soul energy from a few thousand meters away. He broke the protective jade talisman given by Jiang Tian and cursed a transcendent grandmaster. He was like a demon. This person's power had probably surpassed that of a sky immortal and reached an unprecedented level. Would Zhao Xueqing be a match for him? Everyone looked over and saw that Zhao Xueqing's face was also a bit serious. The energy of the immortal phoenix body was rising and the shadow of a divine phoenix kept growing. Although she had reached the late stage of qi refinement, Nie Mingyuan had the extremely rare fiend body of purgatory in the universe. His mind had completely melted the memories of the blood ancestor and the mind Daoist, so she was still under great pressure. Jiang Tian, that bastard, killed my parents, destroyed my family, burned my body and made me suffer unimaginable pain. Nie Mingyuan's face gradually turned cold and tears of blood ran down from his eyes. A fierce and cruel energy rose to the sky. Today I will kill everyone in the Jiang family and stomp on the people of the Tianqing school. Today I will kill you until you are in despair. I will even devour your divine souls so that you will never be reincarnated. Chapter 780. When he finished speaking, a vast and surging divine sense descended from the sky. The lower it went, the more powerful it became. In the end, it arrived with an earth-shattering roar. Even though the overlords on board the expedition weren't his target, their divine souls were still shaken by the impact. The transcendent grandmasters in the distance spurted out blood and passed out. The moment the voice landed on the surface of the sea, a gust of wind howled. Huge waves soared into the sky like a tsunami hurricane. The Taichu aircraft carrier was pushed dozens of meters away. Do it. In your dreams. Zhao Xueqing's pretty face was stern. She didn't waste any time talking nonsense. She waved her jade-white hands and attacked directly. Plang. The black iron shuttle shot out at 3 times the speed of sound and went a few thousand meters towards Nie Mingyuan. Bitch, you're overestimating yourself. You're too weak. Kong Taichu is dead. I can kill you in 3 moves. A bloodthirsty sneer appeared at the corner of Nie Mingyuan's mouth. He lifted his jade-white fingers and gently pinched. Plang. The black iron shuttle that could penetrate a cruiser was clamped tightly in his hand and couldn't move forward at all. Crack. His sparkling and translucent palm shook, directly shattering the black iron flying shuttle that had never failed since it was born into the world. When everyone saw this scene, they all turned pale and cried out wildly. Jiang Tian's black iron shuttle was made with the iron rod of Qi Aoxing, the sacred battling ape. After it was born, it had destroyed fighter jets and penetrated tanks. It was one of the strongest weapons, second only to Xiao Hei's flying sword. Poof! Zhao Xueqing's immortal will was affected. She staggered a few steps back and blood oozed out of the corner of her mouth. However, her phoenix deity body was powerful and the phoenix heart art immediately healed her damaged sea of qi. She also sensed how powerful Nie Mingyuan was. He was also at level 8 or 9 qi refinement level, which was on par with Jiang Tian. His immortal will was especially powerful. Besides, Nie Mingyuan was extremely lucky. He had the memories of the 2 old monsters in his mind. In just a few months he had fought in Southeast Asia, the Middle East and Europe and plundered everything. The treasures he had obtained were probably more than what Jiang Tian had obtained in the past few years. At this moment his surging demonic power shook the heavens and the earth. It was simply boundless. Zhao Xueqing, if you're willing to lead the Tianqing school to submit to the hell-suppressing devil monarch, become his slave and repent for 10 years, then I might put in a few good words for you and spare your life. At that moment the blood ancestor Cain spoke. How dare you? Zhao Xueqing raised her eyebrows and shouted sternly. You're just an old monster and a clown. How dare you be so arrogant? You don't know the background of Tianqing school. She attacked again. This time she used the phoenix dance of the 9th heaven and soared into the sky, standing on the same level as Nie Mingyuan. Her graceful hands were like playing a pipa, her fingers continuously plucking. Sharp spirit finger was used. Plang, plang, plang. Every time she flicked her fingers, there would be a finger aura that shot out like a cannonball. There were divine phoenix patterns engraved on it as if it were made of gold. The power of the finger aura was comparable to that of the most advanced air-to-air missile. But Nie Mingyuan didn't panic at all. He resisted with his body and wasn't hurt at all. Then she used the fire phoenix eyes. A vast ocean of fire spanned thousands of meters across the void. Heat waves swept across the sky and completely enveloped Nie Mingyuan. However, Nie Mingyuan condensed a layer of demonic light to protect his body, and actually blocked this divine ability. A pair of phoenix wings appeared on Zhou Xian's back and she controlled the fire, wind, and thunder, setting off a monstrous sea of thunder. In the end, she used her powerful divine sense to suppress Nie Mingyuan. However, Nie Mingyuan condensed a bone saber and easily cut through all of these divine abilities. 20 seconds later, Nie Mingyuan threw a punch across the sky and directly hit Zhou Xian 2,000 meters away, creating a huge pit on the deck of the aircraft carrier. Ma Tinga, Qin Yang Hu Qing Tian Zhang Wan Qing Yi Ziwei and the others exclaimed. They were extremely nervous. I'm fine. Zhou Xian let out a wry smile. Her eternal creation divine power was supposed to be able to heal her body quickly. But then the wound on her chest was bleeding and there was a cloud of black fiend chi around it. It couldn't be healed. What do you think? You're definitely no match for our master. Only by surrendering and becoming his slaves will you have a chance to live. The blood ancestor, Cain, burst into laughter. His voice was like thunder and it sounded like the roar of a lion. Qin, you're not qualified to challenge Tianqing school. We can die fighting but we won't surrender. Sasaki Haisha shouted in a tender voice. She was unyielding. Chitian monkey was 10 meters tall. He jumped up and reached 1,000 meters in the sky like a cannonball, making the aircraft carrier tremble. Go to hell, pretty boy. He held a giant iron club with both hands and smashed it down. It tore the air and hit the demon king of Zhenyu. You're the descendant of the legendary sacred battle ape? How dare you be so arrogant? Nie Mingyuan smiled mockingly. Without saying a word, he slapped him on the head. Boom. Fiend fire formed a 20-meter flaming palm that seemed to be made of hell fire. There was black fiend chi around it. The Chitian monkey immediately screamed and was knocked 5 kilometers away. He even smashed a destroyer and almost flipped it over. At this time his handsome Mohican hairstyle had been burned, and his skin was split open. Compared to the roasted monkey by Cass Lake, he was only lacking a touch of cumin. After all, he didn't have the strongest body of a monster and he hadn't formed a spirit body yet. He was still too far away from Nie Mingyuan with brute force. I'll grant you an immortal body. All injuries will be healed in 3 days. Nie Mingyuan yelled and waved his hand. Streams of black fiend chi were injected into the overlords' bodies. Boom, boom, boom. Black light suddenly appeared in the eyes of many overlords. Black fiend chi rolled around their bodies and the blood chi on top of their heads doubled. Their morale was greatly boosted as they rose into the air. Like a tidal wave, they charged towards the Tianqing sect group. Bang, bang, bang. In the sky, the 4 immortal state warriors of the Tianqing school led by Tang Linglong and the 6 blood ancestor mighty figures were locked in a fierce battle. Oh no, the Tianqing school is in danger. Yizhantian's face paled as he stepped into the air. Swish. Bam. He crossed a few thousand meters and joined the battle against the Wolf King of the Grassland, Gargal. Qing Linzi and Shirlei also led a group of green-scaled fire owls to carry the heavenly armor aerial cavalry into the battlefield and surrounded the blood ancestor Cain. Hera and other overlords from the Hall of Gods also joined the battle and stopped the Hong sect led by Situ Lei. Boom. Zhao Xueqing and Huang Linger flew into the air and entangled Nie Mingyuan, stopping him from using the fiend divine powers. The holy ape equals the heavens roared and waved his giant club again, using his powerful demonic beast physique to attack Nie Mingyuan. The purple golden dragon also showed up. However, he was very wretched. He appeared and disappeared in the sea and attacked many overlords of the kindred. At this moment, the entire sky was shrouded in the color of blood and demonic chi. Blood dyed the sky and demonic chi boiled like an ocean. Sword chi crisscrossed, Cold light flickered, flames overflowed and lightning flashed. Sometimes the saint ape waved its staff in anger and sometimes, a true dragon came out of the water to swallow people. This battle could be said to be unprecedented since the ancient times and it was extremely shocking. Its destructive force was enormous, and it seemed as if it intended to overturn the sea and tear the sky apart. Many of the spectating experts were dumbfounded by what they saw. But overall, the overlords of the Gathering of Darkness had the upper hand. After being infected by Niamingyuan's fiend qi, they had been demonized. They seemed to have no sense of pain and their body's recovery ability was enhanced. Swish. An azure scale fire owl was beheaded by blood ancestor Ali and a grandmaster disciple fell into the sea. Crack. The little monkey's arm, which was as thick as a water bucket, had been forcefully severed by Niamingyuan. Blood gushed out from the wound, and half of his body had been blasted apart by Niamingyuan's punch. Swish. He flew a few hundred meters away and landed on a giant ship. It retreated into the sea and wouldn't be able to recover in a short time. Then Huang Linger's E-Wood protection shield was hit by Niamingyuan and she was knocked a few hundred meters away. Fortunately, she was caught by an azure scale fire owl. For a moment, the overlords of the Gathering of Darkness became more and more aggressive. On the other hand, the people of the Tianqing sect were forced to retreat again and again. They were constantly injured and fell into a dangerous situation. The Devil Lord of Prison is too powerful. With the help of the Blood Ancestor and the Wolf Ancestor, the Tianqing school is still a bit weaker. Some overlords shook their heads and smiled wryly. The Gathering of Darkness is too powerful. Besides, they have the help of the Devil Lord of Prison. An overlord heaved a sigh. That was the world of the overlords. There were talents in every generation and they would dominate the world for hundreds of years. Kong Teichu had dominated the cultivation world in the east and the west ever since he became a cultivator. He had hunted down superpowers and ruled over a country. He was as powerful as a dragon. However, the Devil Lord of Prison was too powerful. He was even more powerful than Kong Teichu. Now he had massacred the Tianqing school and occupied its dojo. Kong Teichu's era was over. A new era had begun. The next few hundred years might be his era. Tianqing school has lost after all. An overlord from Southeast Asia couldn't bear to watch any longer. He got up and was about to leave. How astonishing was Jiang Taichu's talent. What kind of glory had he forged in the past? He was able to challenge the great powers of the present age, making others feel endless admiration and reverence. Now his era had come to an end, making others sigh and feel extremely upset. There is no more Tianqing school in the world. There is no more Kong Teichu in the world. Situ Lei, the sect master of the Hong sect, sneered. Kill. Kong Teichu is dead. Today, we will avenge our grievances by massacring Sidoni in the North Bay and annihilating the Tianqing school. As for the experts of the Dark Parliament, they all looked up to the sky and laughed wildly. They were proud of themselves and their killing intent soared to the sky. Humph, they're done for. The army was defeated like a landslide. Let's go and destroy the Tianqing school. We will take the dojo and the resources. The king of Tame Tao of Thailand also roared. They took off from the expedition and crossed hundreds of meters in one step, entering the territorial waters. They wanted to invade Saroni, occupy the dojo of Nine Cloud Peak and rob them of their treasures. He was very enthusiastic and led many disciples to help the Gathering of Darkness. This was because the Covenant of Darkness had promised him that if he defeated the Tianqing sect this time, he would be in charge of the Singapore Chinese society in the future. He would be the #1 person in Southeast Asia. In fact, he was only a half-step mortal deity. If not for Kong Teichu's death in the Sword Vault, he wouldn't have dared to come. Right at this moment, a gust of wind that seemed capable of destroying the heavens and earth swept over, making it difficult for everyone to breathe. A bright golden blade aura slashed at them. The sky, which was originally overflowing with devil chi and dark to the point that it was close to night, was instantly illuminated by the resplendent sword light. The blinding blade aura was 5,000 meters long, as if a few suns had risen in the sky. The entire northern bay, which was more than 10 kilometers in radius, was completely illuminated, revealing every single detail. The one-day prison array was something he had unearthed from an ancient ruin in Europe. It was said to be made by a god. Even a red cardinal was trapped to death, but Zhang Tian was still alive. That was unbelievable. It's really Kong Teichu. He's not dead. Many elites of the dragon group were dumbfounded as they looked at each other in disbelief. Shortly after, their faces were filled with joy. Jiang Tian and Tianqing School had a deep relationship with the Long Formation. As Yi Zhantian's teacher, he had helped the Long Formation many times. Now that they saw Jiang Tian come back from the dead, how could they not be excited? Master! Master's back. On the other hand, the members of the Heavenly Clear sect were cheering and jumping for joy. Master's back. Tang Linglong, Sasaki Haishao, Shin Mange and other girls waved their fists in the air. They were excited as if they had found a powerful backer. Jiang Tian is finally back. Huang Linger murmured in a low voice as tears streamed down her beautiful eyes. She had fought with the heart of death. How could she stand it when she suddenly saw hope in the face of despair? Honey, are back. I knew it. My husband wouldn't die so easily. This is great. Zhao Xueqing wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. Her face was full of joy. Her divine sense had sensed that Jiang Tian seemed to be 10 times, no 100 times stronger than before. Now that he was back, Tianqing School and Sidoni would be safe. Under everyone's shocked gaze, Jiang Tian stepped on the void and walked toward them step by step. Every time he took a step forward, a monstrous pressure would surge out like a raging wave, reaching a distance of 1 mile. Many members of the Covenant of Darkness were forced to retreat 1,000 meters. Jiang Tian took 9 steps and finally landed on the deck of the Taichu aircraft carrier. Tianqing School's camp. Many of the experts of the Covenant of Darkness were also forced to retreat 9 miles away. If they retreated a little slower, they would explode into a cloud of blood mist. He also killed more than 100 Covenant of Darkness experts, including nearly 10 Immortal State warriors. Countless people were terrified. The situation took a turn for the worse. Jiang Tian killed 300 members of the Blood Tribe as soon as he appeared. His 9 steps intimidated all the Covenant of Darkness experts. Oh my god, why is the demonic chi that the Demon Lord gave us useless? Run! Countless Covenant of Darkness experts were scared out of their wits. They ran for their lives like stray dogs, hating that their parents didn't give birth to them with 2 legs. You're Kong Teichu? Blood Ancestor Cain waved his blood-red cloak and landed on the yellow ship sewn with human skin. He narrowed his eyes and stared at Jiang Tian. Kong Teichu, I didn't expect you to still be alive. Good. Today we will settle the old and new grudges together. I will kill you. Nie Mingyuan roared furiously and gritted his teeth. Jiang Tian ignored them. He didn't even care about those who were running away. Instead he looked at Zhao Xueqing with concern. Xueqing, are you okay? Honey, I didn't do well enough. Su Ruoqing died and Little Monkey's arm was broken. Zhao Xueqing's eyes dimmed as she said apologetically. No, don't blame yourself. Jiang Tian was calm and said with a smile, this is the Covenant of Darkness, including half of the Covenant of Darkness overlords in the world. It's already impressive that you can last this long. As for Little Monkey and Su Ruoqing, don't worry. They can be repaired. Jiang Tian smiled and threw out 2 talismans a few hundred meters away, covering Su Ruoqing's body and Little Monkey. Su Ruoqing suddenly opened her eyes and came back to life. Little Monkey's broken arm was also quickly repaired. Everyone cheered and their morale was boosted. With Grandmaster Zhang's ability to revive the dead, who would be afraid of a battle? Who would be afraid of death? A gratified smile appeared on Zhao Xueqing's pretty face. She looked cold, but she was kind inside. She valued relationships and didn't want any of her friends or comrades to leave. At this moment, Hu Qingtian stepped forward, bowed and reminded, Grandmaster Jiang, those demons and monsters are escaping quickly. They've already flown 10 kilometers away. If we don't chase after them, I'm afraid we'll be letting the tiger return to the mountain. You overestimate them. Jiang Tian smiled and said disdainfully, what are they? What kind of tigers are they? They're not even big cats or small cats. They're just ants. They can't run away. Everyone was confused. The overlords who had escaped suddenly returned. Their faces were paler than corpses that had been dead for 3 days. They can't run away. It was actually blocked by an invisible barrier. No Dharma treasures or swords can cut it. They were trembling and crying as if they had seen ghosts. They were desperate and scared to the extreme. At this time, if one were to look down a few thousand meters in the sky, they would see a light golden true essence barrier with a radius of 10 kilometers. It covered half of the North Bay like a giant round bowl. The reason why Zhang Tian had created this barrier was to prevent many powerful cultivators from escaping, and also to prevent the surveillance satellites of many big countries from observing. It contained enormous electromagnetic waves and distorted force fields. It was chaotic and blurry and no one could see it. This barrier was a divine power that Zhang Tian had activated after reaching the Foundation establishment level. It was much more powerful than many restriction Dharma artifacts. Zhang Tian wanted to hide his trump card. He wanted to hide the back of his blade so that the great powers of the world would not be able to accurately estimate his strength. Why should we run? Everyone's will is like an impregnable fortress. We'll definitely be able to kill this demon Jiang Taichu. Blood Ancestor Ali roared to encourage everyone. Blood Ancestor Cain sneered. Kong Taichu is too arrogant. Seems that he wants to kill us all. What a fool. These blood ancestors were all mortal deities and saints. Some of them were as powerful as earth-level deities and there were many immortal state warriors present. If Kong Taichu was smart, he would let some of them go and take them out one by one. Then the pressure would be reduced. If the dark overlords attacked together, no matter how strong Kong Taichu was, how many nails could he crush? Jiang Tian's eyes flashed with coldness. He turned to Cain and Yemingyuan and said coldly, "When I killed the blood god of France and his descendants in Europe, I had already discovered your existence. However, we minded our own business and I didn't want to deal with you, so I let you go. Do you really think that I'm soft-hearted or that I'm not a match for you? And Yemingyuan, you should have died when I killed your family that day. I didn't expect you to survive and come to me on your own accord." As Jiang Tian spoke, a cold expression appeared on his face as he said coldly, "Today I'll kill all of you and let your blood stain the Gulf of Tonkin. Anyone who offends the Tianqing school must die." Plang. After Jiang Tian said that, without saying a word, he narrowed his eyes, and the lightning patterns in the depths of his pupils suddenly flickered. Suddenly, a sea of purple lightning with a radius of at least 500 meters surged out from Jiang Tian's eyes. Chapter 782. The scene was too shocking. The scene was too shocking. Countless bolts of purple lightning intertwined. Each of them was at least as thick as an arm and some were even thicker than a bucket. The lightning was so bright that it looked like thousands of lightning dragons were rolling, roaring, and baring their fangs. Under the contrast of this sea of lightning, even the sun in the sky lost its splendor. All the experts were as insignificant as ants, causing people to feel a chill down their spines. How can he form so many divine thunders? Blood Ancestor Ali's voice trembled. Half of the immortal state warriors had been killed, and the Blood Ancestor was severely injured. How could the 5 Blood Ancestors hold the fort? Oh no. Oh no. Lightning again. Everyone's heart sank. They felt as if they had fallen into an abyss. For a moment no one dared to fight with Jiang Tian. They only activated their body protection arts and quickly retreated. Then an even more shocking scene unfolded. Blade. Jiang Tianyu stretched out his hand and actually caught the thunder-condensed blade. A blade made of purple lightning formed in the air. It was a few hundred meters long. At this moment, the lightning that had been flickering in and out had strangely stopped and solidified. The edge of the blade was extremely sharp. It flickered with a cold light and gave people a very complicated feeling. The blade and the back of the blade seemed to have been weaved and intertwined with lightning dragons. It was like a peerless divine weapon used by the ancient god to break the chaos in Hongmeng. It was strangely beautiful. "Master Kong, we're just here for show. Please let us go. If Grandmaster Jiang is willing to let me go, I will definitely pledge my allegiance to you and will no longer dare to become enemies with Grandmaster Jiang and the Tianqing sect." After the blade was formed, many immortal state warriors were terrified. Their legs gave out and they trembled. They almost knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. "What's the use of begging? We can only escape if we kill Kong Taichu." Blood Ancestor Ali growled. Only a few blood patriarchs were able to hold on, but their expressions were still very grave. Blood Ancestor Cain's face was as gloomy as water, as if he was facing a great enemy. His hands formed hand seals, and his lips moved quickly as he chanted an incantation. Immediately, blood crystal armor formed and covered his face and body within a few breaths' time. These armors were covered with strange patterns and looked very simple and majestic. They looked like armors from the Middle Ages and did not belong to modern society. At the same time, his large hand reached into his chest and pulled out 5 or 6 magic treasures. He held them tightly in his hand, ready to activate them at any time. Nie Mingyuan, on the other hand, was unusually calm at this time. But in front of Zhang Tian, if anyone dared to think like that, if anyone dared to be so arrogant, then that person would be an idiot. In other words, the immortal body of the blood race was a joke in front of Zhang Tian. He could still kill them with one slash. In the blink of an eye, Zhang Tian's purple lightning blade had already swept through many overlords above the immortal state level. Bang! The coppersmith's golden shield, which could withstand cluster missiles, was shattered by Zhang Tian's blade like a piece of paper. The sharp shards pierced through him like the sharpest and most violent shrapnel, turning him into a sieve. It hurts. The coppersmith's shrill scream stopped abruptly because he was also annihilated in the next second. The blade continued to sweep. The golden shield was shattered and the grand divine priest of the green leaf sect flew in the air like a fallen leaf. He was swept by the remaining heat of the lightning and immediately turned into ashes. Ouch! Help me! Blood Ancestor Ali screamed. The 7 or 8 layers of defense on his body were directly shattered by the blade. His strong body, which could withstand artillery fire and strong lasers, exploded in an instant and turned into a crystal rain of flesh. Then it immediately dried up and turned into charcoal and ashes that fell into the sea. Then the blade continued to sweep. In the shrill screams and screams, in the midst of begging and crying, in the midst of continuous explosions, the other blood ancestors, Blood Drinker Jim, Undead Emissary Damon, Blood Knight, Black Blood Ancestor Jack, Holy Wing Blood Ancestor, all of the blood ancestors exploded one after another like huge red fireworks. Then they turned into ashes and were annihilated. Even their blood souls were shredded into pieces. Lightning flashed for 3 kilometers and the explosion of blood was as bright as fireworks. With only one slash, Zhang Tian killed 6 blood ancestors at the mortal deity level and defeated dozens of immortal state overlords. Oh my god! The power of this slash has surpassed that of an earth-level deity and even a sky immortal. It's comparable to a real deity. Many of the overlords who were watching the battle were shocked. Their mouths were about to tear off their ears and their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Not to mention the legendary mortal deity saints. How powerful were the immortal state overlords? The divine powers of the immortal state overlords were earth-shattering. They were international giants who controlled a country and a sect and could talk to the heads of state on an equal footing. But now, Ali had been crushed into pieces by Zhang Tian's blade. No, not even a piece of him was left. This was too terrifying. If this was not a miracle of a deity, then what could be called a miracle of a deity? The Taichu Thunder Blade, the Jade Universe is clear for thousands of miles. Clear the sky, leave no one alive. Kong Taichu's slash is comparable to a large country's army on an expedition. It's even more powerful than a nuclear explosion. Master Red Boat shouted to the sky. His eyes were full of reverence as if he were a believer seeing a real deity. This was not an exaggeration at all. Back then, the European continent had sent hundreds of thousands of troops and the Holy See and the Palace of Gods to hunt down the Gathering of Darkness for 10 years. But what was the result? They had only killed a dozen blood ancestors, but most of the blood ancestors were still intact. They had just gone into hibernation. Today, however, Zhang Tian had defeated 6 infamous blood forefathers with only one slash. How powerful was his battle prowess? Master Kang's slash can defeat thousands of troops. It has never been seen before and it has shocked the world. Hera bowed deeply to Zhang Tian. Her face was full of admiration and ecstasy. Her beautiful face was glowing and her beautiful eyes were shining. The European Union had activated the Gathering of Darkness and abandoned the Palace of Gods in order to eliminate Kong Taichu and Sidoni. The Gathering of Gods had taken revenge on the Palace of Gods. Two main gods had fallen and hundreds of members had been killed, but the European Union had done nothing for the sake of their own interests. Hera had thought that there was no hope for revenge and that Tianqing school was about to fall. She had never thought that Zhang Tian would be able to defeat the grand cultivators of the kindred with one slash and almost exterminate the entire kindred. This was equivalent to avenging the palace of gods. How could she not worship Zhang Tian? How could she not be ecstatic and grateful? My people and brothers, Your Highness, why didn't you do anything? Seeing this, the blood ancestor Cain's face turned pale and he exclaimed with a trembling voice. Now all the kindred had died except for him. This meant that all the senior members of the kindred on Earth had been killed by Zhang Tian, except for the small fries below the level of Duke and Marquis who hadn't participated in the battle. This kind of blow, this kind of disparity was simply too great, too cruel, it was simply unacceptable. Cain, I think it's better to call you damned. Zhang Tian stepped in the air and sneered. His eyes were as sharp as knives. You're quite capable to be able to withstand one slash from me. All right, I'll take your life next. He clenched his hands and suddenly shook them. A purple lightning spear immediately formed between his fingers. This purple lightning spear was 300 meters long. It was like a giant lightning dragon that was filled with terrifying power. Master Kong, don't kill me. Do you know where Zhang Qianlei went? Cain waved his hand and shouted. Where did he go? Zhang Tian asked with concern. The murderous intent in his eyes faded a bit. Zhang Qianlei had gone to the sword vault before Zhang Tian. But Zhang Tian didn't find any trace of Zhang Qianlei along the way. He was dead and nowhere to be found. Zhang Tian had fought side by side with Zhang Qianlei several times and they had a good relationship, so he was worried about him. Those huge waves were more than 10 meters high and had a destructive power that could destroy everything. Many large ships trembled as if they were about to capsize. Many overlords of the Tianqing school were blown away. Ah, the demon king of prison has finally made his move. Some dark overlords who were hiding in the distance exclaimed. This palm is as powerful as a sky immortal. This time Kong Teichu might not have 100% chance of winning. Situ Lei, the leader of the Hong sect, was a cunning man. He had run away as soon as the battle started. He was so excited that his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. The Demon King is immortal. We will win this battle. Calco, the ancestor of the grassland wolves, shouted. Just a moment ago, one of his arms was blown off by Zhang Tian's purple lightning blade. His son had also died at the hands of the Tianqing school. At this moment he hated Zhang Tian to the core. No matter how powerful Kong Teichu is, he is just an ordinary human being. He is no match for the Demon King of prison. The Demon King's power is unparalleled. Once the demonic palm strikes, no one will be able to stop him. Victory! Victory! Seeing Ye Mingyuan attack Zhang Tian, many of the remaining members of the Senate waved their fists and cheered for him. Now Zhang Tian had made it clear that he was going to kill them all. They knelt down and begged for mercy. Ye Mingyuan was their only hope of survival. Master, you must win. Seeing the demonic palm covering the sky, Hu Qingtian's expression was grave and he frowned. Watch out. Teng Linglong said seriously. Zhang Tian. Huang Linger's eyes were filled with concern and nervousness. Her body tensed up slightly. When everyone from the Tianqing sect saw this, a trace of seriousness appeared on their faces. Their hearts tightened as they clenched their fists. Ye Mingyuan was too powerful. Even though he was a few thousand meters away, he could still feel the terrifying pressure. This attack was comparable to that of a sky immortal sacred master and far more powerful than the blood ancestor. It was also the most powerful opponent Zhang Tian had ever encountered. If my husband hadn't reached the foundation establishment level, he might have had a chance. But my husband has reached the foundation establishment level. Even 10 Ye Mingyuans are no match for him. Only Zhao Xueqing knew Zhang Tian's strength and was full of confidence in him. She didn't care about Ye Mingyuan at all. Ye Mingyuan, you're just a clown. You want to fight with me? You're way too weak. Zhang Tian sneered and thrust his spear toward the sky. Boom. That huge demonic palm directly shattered. The fragments of the demonic palm fell from the sky like meteorites and smashed many ships of the Gathering of Darkness into pieces. Huh. Noticing this detail, Zhao Xueqing's eyes widened in astonishment. Her face changed slightly as she exclaimed softly. Generally speaking, any energy attack condensed by cultivators on Earth would explode uncontrollably once it was broken. However, Nieming Yuan's demonic palm was not completely shattered after being penetrated by Zhang Tian's spear and hit by lightning and high temperature. Countless demonic inscriptions were intertwined on the demonic palm like a kind of law of heaven and earth, which could firmly control the demonic qi. It could be said that if it weren't for Zhang Tian, Nieming Yuan would be invincible in this world in terms of talent, luck and physique. After all, it was the famous fiend body of purgatory that was 1 in a billion in the cultivation world. Only a few of them could be found even if the entire earth was turned upside down. However, some of the fragments of the demonic palm were completely destroyed and exploded uncontrollably. Immediately, as if a cluster of missiles had exploded, flames soared into the sky. The giant ships were torn apart and fell silent. The weapons and helicopters on them were reduced to piles of scrap metal. That's terrifying. It's just a fragment of the demonic palm, but it's already so powerful. Countless people exclaimed. Playing. Zhang Tian did not let Nieming Yuan off after gaining the upper hand. He soared into the sky and thrust out the second spear. His speed surpassed the limit and pierced Nieming Yuan's chest. Bang! The demonic qi shield around Nieming Yuan was shattered. Nieming Yuan, you are too weak. Zhang Tian stabbed at Nieming Yuan for the third time as fast as lightning. The long-sleeved Daoist robe on Nieming Yuan's body bloomed with bright light and formed a tough defense. This robe was from a sky immortal ancestral master of Dianzong. It was a high-grade spiritual robe and could withstand 10 full-strength attacks from an earth-level deity. But now, under Zhang Tian's spear, the robe was shattered and the fragments were scattered in the air like butterflies. You should have died long ago. You have lived for so long. You should be satisfied. Zhang Tian sneered and shot out another spear. Bang! Nieming Yuan spat out black blood and flew a few hundred meters away. There was a black hole where the spear hit him and many shocking cracks spread from the center to the rest of his body. Blood dripped along the cracks as if a high-quality porcelain was about to break. Many powerful figures from the dark world were speechless. They could only take a deep breath of cold air. Nieming Yuan's body was 1 in a million. During this period of time he had plundered many Dharma treasures in the eastern and western worlds. But now Zhang Tian had almost destroyed them. Zhang Tian had reached the foundation establishment level and the power he showed was too strong. He didn't use any moves at all and the purple lightning spear had the power to destroy the world. Kong Teichu's strong return this time is really going to shock the world. An overlord exclaimed. Swish. Zhang Tian was like a flying bee, and it seemed like he would be smashed into pieces in the next moment. To everyone's astonishment, a member of the blood race who retreated a bit too slowly was immediately suppressed by the divine emperor's shadow. His aura declined and he turned into a pile of dried bones. Felt like hundreds of years had passed in an instant. Purple lightning eyes, sun and moon wheel, sea of stars, golden flame armor and emperor's robe. These represented the 5 divine abilities of Zhang Tian's gung metal divine body. Divine abilities were different from ordinary spells. They would evolve as Zhang Tian's cultivation base improved. After reaching the soul formation stage, Zhang Tian could shatter the sky with a single glance and age deities with a single finger. He could even turn back time to 100 years. At the moment Zhang Tian had only reached the foundation establishment level, but he could only simulate some of these divine abilities. It wouldn't be a problem for him to kill Nieming Yuan. At this moment when everyone saw this scene they were all shocked. Zhang Tian's formation was not inferior to Nieming Yuan's at all. If Nieming Yuan was said to be a devil god who had walked out of hell, that Zhang Tian was the emperor of the god race who descended from the 9 heavens. He stepped on the eternal blue sky, overlooking the sun, moon and stars. No matter how strong you are, you'll die. Nieming Yuan shouted. The 9 fiends waved and roared at the same time, letting out earth-shattering roars like wild beasts. Boom! With a flash of his body he crossed a distance of several kilometers and flew toward Zhang Tian. Arg! 9 fiends destroy the world! He shouted angrily. The 9 demon heads danced wildly, extending hundreds of meters away from his back in all directions. Every demon was as big as a tank or as big as a small car. They roared ferociously, looking extremely terrifying and shocking. Then the demon heads opened their bloody mouths and their long necks suddenly bent. Suddenly they were like 9 giant dragons that tried to bite Zhang Tian. Reincarnation of the sun and moon. Zhang Tian held the sun in one hand and the silver moon in the other. He pushed the red sun and the silver moon out and slashed at the fiends. Crack! A head, together with a long dragon-like neck, was severed at the base. It fell into the sea, creating a world-shaking explosion and setting off monstrous waves like a tsunami. Arg! Niaming howled miserably at the sky. His large hand, which was covered with bone spikes, suddenly slammed toward Zhang Tian's chest. This palm strike was accompanied by a torrential demonic aura. Heaven and earth changed color, and even the void turned pitch black as if it had been annihilated. If 10 mortal deities and earth-level deities were there, they would have been smashed into ashes. Plang! Zhang Tian didn't dodge, he took the attack with his body. The red sun and silver moon intertwined as they flew out. Inside there were golden crows and jade rabbits circling around. The sun rose and the moon fell, growing and multiplying endlessly. Facing Zhang Tian's earth-shattering divine power, many overlords in the dark world didn't even have the power to resist. Arg! The king of Tame Tao and Garga the Wolf King were crushed into ashes before they even had a chance to scream. The red sun and the silver moon formed a small circle of time and contained the power of dimension. It was as if the world was turned upside down, crushing the overlords in the immortal state and even the mortal deity saints. No, I can't die. The blood ancestor, Cain, turned into a beam of crimson light and pierced through the golden barrier at 3 times the speed of sound like a sharp crimson sword. He wanted to tear open a hole and escape. His strength had reached the peak of the Saint King, which was the earth-level deity of the East. He was only 1 step away from the Sky Immortal Sacred Master, so he might be able to tear open a hole and escape by burning his blood crystal. Half of his body went through the array. Unexpectedly, a purple lightning saber light slashed at him from an impeccable angle, as if it had transcended space and slashed at his body. Arg! Cain let out a howl of despair before exploding. Even his crimson soul had been pulverized into nothingness. A sacred master and an earth-level deity died under 1 slash. The entire North Bay was in a dead silence. Countless overlords were dumbfounded and couldn't say a word. Only Zhang Tian stood in the air with the sun and the moon in his hands and thunder in his eyes. His fierceness suppressed the world. Dead, they're all dead, a grand magus from the Middle East said with a trembling voice. Cain the blood ancestor, Ali and the other blood ancestors, Garga the wolf ancestor of the grassland, the king of Tame Tao from Thailand, all of them had been famous for hundreds of years and were invincible in the world. They were extremely powerful and were all above the immortal state. Some of them were even mortal deities and earth-level deities. However, they were crushed like ants in front of Zhang Tian. I regret it so much. Why did I come? A dark magician from Eastern Europe said with a trembling voice. He wanted to cry but had no tears. At the moment the entire North Bay was covered in blood. Hundreds of peak overlords had died. Today's battle was destined to stun the dark world and make countless experts tremble in fear. Chapter 785. But in fact the battle was not over yet. Suddenly the eyes of Zhang Tian, who had already retracted his golden avatar, turned cold as he stared at the floating Black Sea. This guy was still alive. The demon body of purgatory was extremely powerful, and his desire for revenge was too strong. If he let him go there would be endless troubles. It seemed that he couldn't let him live. Today he would kill him until he could never be reincarnated. Boom. The next moment, a huge wave rose from the ground and Ye shot out. His gloomy eyes glanced around and a trace of anger appeared on his face. Very well, Zhang Tian, you are really strong. You killed all my subordinates. But without them I can still kill you. The demon body of purgatory was too difficult to support. With Nie Mingyuan's current cultivation, he couldn't maintain it for a long time. At this time, Nie Mingyuan had shrunk to a height of 7 or 8 meters, but the 9 flying demons were still extremely frightening and terrifying. In fact, Nie Mingyuan's cultivation was only at the 2nd level of foundation establishment. According to the cultivation system on Earth, he was at the level of human immortal or Earth immortal. But the demon body of purgatory was one of the most powerful demon bodies in the universe, so his combat power was very strong and could be compared with that of a sky immortal sacred master. Even if Situ Xiao was here, he would be slightly inferior. They're just a bunch of thieves. So what if they're dead? How dare you provoke me with just a few cats and kittens? Zhang Tian looked at the world disdainfully. Looking at the whole world, who else could make Zhang Tian fight? The Heavenly Deity clan in the United States, the Holy See in Europe, the Hongmeng, the Kunlun sect. There were only a few. Zhang Tian had never taken demons and clowns like the wolf ancestor of the blood race to heart. Zhang Tian, I'm going to kill you. Nie Mingyuan waved his demons and shouted coldly. If I don't kill you to avenge my parents and Feng, I won't have the face to stand in this world. Today I will definitely kill you. Haha, I underestimated you that day in Jinling. I didn't get rid of you with my own hands and allowed you to grow stronger. Zhang Tian chuckled, flicked his sword and sang loudly. But that's good too. Your constitution isn't bad. Demonic flames overflowed and demonic blood surged. I'm going to pull out your tendons, peel off your skin, crush your flesh and crush your bones. I'm going to refine you into an exceptional precious medicine and use you as a resource for my breakthrough. Whether it was the blood race, the wolf race or the demon body of purgatory, none of them had the blood of the human race on Earth. They contained a great amount of energy. If the impurities were removed, they could be refined into the highest quality pills. There were large and black mushroom and Ganoderma clouds that stood like pillars in the southwest corner of the city. In an instant the sky darkened. Dust and fire flew everywhere. The sky collapsed and the earth sank. From the Fu City Gate in the east to the Ministry of Justice Street in the north, the area was 1,500 to 2,000 meters wide and 6,500 meters long. Wood, stones, human bodies and bird corpses fell from the sky like raindrops. Tens of thousands of houses and more than 20,000 people were blown into powder. Debris flew from the sky. There were even more dead people outside the core of the explosion. It was said that there were more than 100,000 people. Their clothes were blown to Chongping and they were all naked. Is it a weapon from the outer space? Everyone in Tianqing school looked solemn and nervous. During the Tianqi era, the Heaven Destroyer sword could cause such a terrible explosion just by falling. If it was used, how terrifying would its lethality be? And Zhang Tian had once carefully researched this period of history. Looking at the length and width of the explosion, he speculated that it was a magical weapon in the shape of a sword that fell. Today, after hearing this, it was indeed so. Including the Tunguska explosion in Russia and the Death Hill incident in India. Zhang Tian suspected that it had something to do with the falling of magical weapons from outer space. Zhang Tian thought to himself. It seemed that this speculation was quite reasonable. After this battle, he would have to investigate it. After this sword was obtained, it was escorted to the Immerse sect of Mount Shu by the Tianqi Emperor's state protector and many martial arts experts. Nie Mingyuan said proudly, the Immerse sect used this sword as the base to build a mountain protection array. This treasured sword was the foundation of the Immerse sect's mountain protection formation. The Dharma power it emitted protected the Immerse sect for hundreds of years. It was only when I led the many blood ancestors to break through the Immerse sect that I took out this treasured sword. He held the long sword horizontally and said coldly, today I'll use it to kill you. It's your honor. Ah, you want to kill me with just a few pieces of scrap metal? Zhang Tian sneered. Is the demon sword used by the cosmic demons great? Even demon kings and demon gods, I have killed countless of them. In outer space there were many kinds of demons such as the nether demons, the sky demons, the bloodthirsty demons and so on. They once occupied many star regions and spread the demon Dao. Of course they had fought with the human race. In his previous life, when Zhang Tian became the Taichu Celestial Emperor, he had led an army of 100,000 cultivators on countless expeditions and crusades. In the end, he even attacked the ancestral planet of the demons and killed 16 demon lords and 3 fiend ancestors, shocking the universe. Demonic throne. Most of these attacks came from the inheritance of the brain-headed Daoist and blood ancestor Green. Coupled with the demonic body of purgatory, his power was doubled. He could even kill an earth immortal with ease. Unfortunately, he met Xianxia, the Xianxia who had become a god after cultivating for 10,000 years. Now Xianxia had completed his gung metal divine body and cultivated his second primordial spirit and indestructible transcendence golden body. When these spells hit Xianxia, they only made Xianxia sway slightly. They could not hurt him at all. Meanwhile, Xianxia's 9 flying swords were crazily slashing at him, leaving behind one deep wound after another on his body. In the end, Xianxia even used black as flying swords. A total of 10 flying swords crossed the sky and pierced through heaven and earth. Nie Mingyuan was forced to retreat. Today I, Kong Techu, will use my infinite divine sense to create a heart tribulation illusion to destroy your heart's blood and your soul devourer completely. While talking, Xianxia had already rushed to intercept. At the same time, the small golden lake in the center of his forehead rippled, and the illusion suddenly appeared. Mingyuan. Nie Mingyuan had run 10 kilometers away. Suddenly he heard a warm and clear voice behind him, which made his divine soul avatar tremble. The voice was very soft, but to Nie Mingyuan's divine soul avatar, it was no less than a bolt from the blue. It was the voice of his father Nie Zhonghai. Save me. I'm in so much pain from the fire. Mother Nie's screams were very painful and mournful. Just like that night, the voices of many Nie family members being burned, the cries for help and the screams were very clear and real and entered his ears. Nie Mingyuan's divine soul avatar suddenly stopped. Stop screaming. The divine soul avatar shouted angrily, but the voice still firmly drilled into his ears. You unfilial son, you can't even kill Xianxia. You're not worthy of being a son. You're too useless. Nie Zhonghai suddenly appeared in front of him. I should have shot you to the wall back then. Suddenly, Nie Zhonghai's figure changed, and he turned into a several hundred meters long evil dragon. He opened his bloody mouth and bit at Nie Mingyuan's divine soul. A trace of cold sweat slowly slid down the forehead of Nie Mingyuan's divine soul. The soul devourer's divine sense was very strong, and the divine soul avatar was like a real person with 5 viscera, 6 senses and 5 senses. It was almost solid. Don't look back, Demon King. The remnant of brain Daoist's divine soul suddenly screamed, this is a heart tribulation illusion. This Kong Techu actually created a heart tribulation illusion. It's too scary. You can never leave after one look. Nie Mingyuan's divine soul avatar couldn't move anymore, and tears of blood rolled out of his eyes. He seemed to see the past, the familiar home and those happy times. In the luxurious villa of the Nie family in Jinling, his father sat on a leather sofa imported from Italy, majestically giving orders, dealing with official business, and sternly interrogating him about his studies and business operations after he hung up the phone. His mother brought in steaming hot food, persuaded his father and spoke for him. His mother was very beautiful and dignified and would always be his warm harbor. His younger brother, Nie Feng, would definitely eat a few pieces without washing his hands, and would be gently scolded by his mother. Although Nie Feng was very naughty and playful in the eyes of others, in his eyes he was so cute and naughty. Mingyuan, I want to be with you forever. A soft and pleasant voice like a lover whispering in his ear sounded again. It was Nie Xuemon's voice. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.